Aloha mai kako and good morning. It is 9:03 a.m. July 23rd, 2020 News Commission meeting, which is being held using interactive conference technology, linking video conference participants and other interested individuals of the public via the Zoom net conferencing program. We're doing this, of course, to comply with state and county operation pandemic. Members of the public are viewing the meeting via the Zoom webinar platform. For all meeting participants, I would like to stress to everyone the importance of speaking slowly, clearly, directly into your microphone, and that speaking, you please state your name and identify yourselves for the record. This is especially important for people in rooms with multiple people, such as that who is actually talking the way we can when you have one camera to one person. Also, please be aware all meetings if you wish to be part of the record, you should exit meeting now.
Excuse me.
Zoom conferencing technology was, did you say something?
Yeah, you were freezing halfway through your the introduction. So I think it's a couple of it.
Where did I freeze?
To start, Chair.
At the very start?
Yes.
Well, take two. It's 9:05 a.m. This is the July 23rd, 2020 Land Use Commission meeting. And it's being held using interactive conference technology, linking video conference participants and other interested individuals of the public via the Zoom internet conferencing program. We're doing this to comply with state and county operational directives during the current COVID-19 pandemic. Members of the public are viewing the meeting via the Zoom webinar platform. Good so far? Okay. For all meeting participants, I would like to stress to everyone the importance of speaking slowly, clearly, directly into your microphone, and before speaking, you please state your name and identify yourselves for the record. As I noted or tried to earlier, this is especially important for people who are in rooms with others. For instance, the county, we cannot see readily who it is that is speaking. Please also be aware that all meeting participants are being recorded on the digital record of the Zoom meeting. Your continued participation is your implied consent to be part of the record for this event. If you do not wish to be part of the public record, you should exit the meeting now. This Zoom conference technology allows the parties and each participating commissioner individual remote access to the meeting proceedings via our personal digital devices. Please note, as was recently demonstrated on my connection, that due to matters entirely outside our control, at one time or another, one or more members might have occasional disruptions. If you see such disruptions, please let us know, and please be patient as we try to restore the audiovisual signals to effectively conduct business during the pandemic. I'm K. Scheuer, and I am currently the LUC chair. I'm on Oahu, along with Commissioners Axon, Chang, Okuda, and Wong, our LUC Executive Officer Daniel Orodenker, LUC Chief Planner Scott Derrickson, Mr. Riley Hakoda, the LUC's Deputy Attorney General Julie Sheena, and our court reporter Jean McManus. Commissioner Cabral is on Hawaii Island. Commissioner Ohigashi is on Maui, and Commissioner Giovanni is on Kauai. We currently have 8 of 9 seated commissioners. Our next agenda item is a status report on A02737, University of the Nations, Bencorp, Hawaii. Will the parties please identify yourselves for the record? And remember,
the chair froze, but this is Catherine Garson. from Carl Smith Ball. I'm the attorney for the petitioner, University of Nations, Kona, Inc. Here with me in Hilo, Derek Simon, also of Carl Smith Ball, and Julie Anjo and Alan Anjo were general counsels for the University of Nations, Kona.
Thank you, Ms. Garson. County? County of Hawaii?
Can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you.
Thank you. This is Diana Mellon Lacey from Corporation Counsel for the County of Hawaii. Also present with me is John Mukai from Corporation Counsel and Jeff Darrow from the Planning Department.
And April and Michael.
Oh, and April Supernaut and Michael Yee are not in the room at the moment, but they will be joining us.
Thank you very much. Office of Planning.
Good morning, Chair, members of the Commission. Donna Puna, Deputy Attorney General on behalf of the Office of Planning. Here with me today is Rodney Funakoshi and Lorene Maki.
Let me update the record, and please start to wave your hands or anything if my internet connection appears to be unstable. On January 8th, 2020, the Commission met in Kailua Kona at the Nilha facility and voted to deny the University of Nations Bencorp's reconsideration of the order granting the United Nation of Kona's motion to continue the hearing on the order to show cause, to only allow typographical corrections, date changes to the petitioner's corporate name change, and associated amendments and corrections to the caption. On March 23rd, 2020, the Commission received two documents: the petitioner's withdrawal of its motion to amend the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and decision in order dated December 21st, 2006, and the petitioner's motion to amend the findings of fact, conclusion of law, and decision in order dated March 23rd, 2020, along with petitioner's exhibits 1 through 20. Between March 25th and July 7th of this year, we received OP's request for an extension of time. We issued a pre-hearing order for the parties. The petitioner, OP, and the county submitted a joint stipulation regarding the scheduling of the motion to amend the order with the LUC. The County of Hawaii submitted its statement of position on the LUC order to show cause and the petitioner's motion to amend. And the petitioner filed its witness list, exhibit list, and first supplemental memorandum in support of its motion to amend the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and decision in order filed on March 19th, 2019, as well as exhibits 21 through 29. OP filed its testimony on the petitioner's motion to amend, and the petitioner filed its second list of rebuttal witnesses in response to the order to show cause issued May 20th, 2019, as well as its response to OP's and the county's position statements. On July 14th, 2020, the Commission mailed the July 22nd and 23rd, 2020 notice of agenda to the parties and to our statewide Oahu and Hawaii regular and email mailing lists. Let me now go over our procedures for today. First, working with staff, it is tested in the any individuals. Oh, am I? Nancy Cabral is waving.
Jerry, you're cutting out.
Yeah.
At the very.
Thank you. Where did we get to?
By staff, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Working with staff, so I'm mentioning three procedural matters for today. First, working with staff, I will note any public written testimony received. Second, I will call on any individuals who have pre-registered to testify, and I will bring them into the Zoom meeting. Third, I will, after all registered testifiers have completed their testimony, I will call individuals from the general audience who may wish to testify on this matter. For individuals from the general audience who wish to testify on this matter who are not pre-registered and are participating via phone, if you're participating via computer, use the raise hand function. If you're participating via phone, dial *6 to toggle mute, unmute, and *9 to raise your hand. For all witnesses, both registered and not registered, I will bring you into the meeting, swear you in. You will have 2 minutes to testify, and after your 2 minutes, you need to remain available for questioning by the parties and the commission. After the completion of public testimony, parties will be given the opportunity to admit their exhibits into the record. After the admission of exhibits, the petitioner will provide their status report. I will then call on the County of Hawaii and the OP to offer any comments regarding the status report, and the petitioner will be allowed to respond for any comments made by the county and the Office of Planning. From time to time, I will call for short breaks, approximately 1 every hour. Are there any questions on our procedures for today, beginning with the petitioner?
No questions.
County.
No questions, thank you.
OP.
No questions.
Commissioners? No, thank you. Either Mr. Derrickson or Mr. gave written testimony on this matter.
Mr. Chair, this is Riley Hakoda. We had no written testimony. We had Mr. Francis Oda and Jeff Overton registered on behalf of petitioner, and other public witnesses are Martin Rediger and Robert Reckman.
Okay. Very much. Going in that order, I'm going to bring in Mr. Oda. Oh, Ms. Garson.
Mr. Chair, just procedurally, Mr. Francis Oda and Jeff Overton were going to assist in the preparation of our status report, in the presentation of our status report. So I don't know if they registered incorrectly, but they were going to be assisting with the status report. Mr. Redinger was on standby should this matter proceed, or you have any questions. He's also from the University of Nations. And Paul Childers also. So they're with the University of Nations, and they are basically on standby if you had any questions that we couldn't answer ourselves.
Okay. Ms. Garson, I had a little bit of audio problems hearing you during that, but what I understood you to say is that all 4 names mentioned are people who are on standby for your presentation.
Correct.
Okay. So we can wait to call them in as testifiers if you want to call on them during your presentation. Are there any other people who are attending this meeting as members of the public who wish to testify in this matter? If so, please use the raise your hand function, and I will admit you in. Okay, I'm going to admit in Mr. Aaron Esperanza. Esperanza, when you come into the meeting, or Aaron Esperanza, when you come into the meeting, please enable your audio and video. So you need to unmute yourself and turn on your camera. There you are. Aloha. You are still muted.
Aloha, Kako.
Okay, can you speak closer to your microphone, please?
Can you hear me now?
That is better. I'm going to swear you in. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes.
Okay, you have 2 minutes. Please go ahead. Beginning with stating your name and address for the record.
For the record, my name is Aaron Esparza, speaking on my own behalf. I live in 734-177 Molino Place, Kaliua, Kona, Hawaii. I'm speaking regarding the University of Nations involvement in the community. Since 2017, I've worked in organizations such as Catholic Charities, as well as with Epical Hana in Kona, where I'm currently. I'm versed in the foster care system, social workers, attorneys, children, and resource caregivers. During my time at Catholic Charities, I've noticed a drastic increase in the recruitment efforts of the university and their involvement with foster families. The RCGs their training have provided for have gone above and beyond to help foster children and their parents. And to me, they've become some of the best foster parents here because they do not get into conflict with the bio parents over the children, no reports of abuse or harms, and as always, from my experience, providing a way for bio parents to connect with the children as much as possible safely. And when the university started their keiki closet, we're pretty excited because CWS does not have a holding space for donations, and Catholic Charities had very little space. So to have a dedicated site where RCGs and bio parents could come to get supplies for free was a big deal. And one of my clients here at Epico Hana even stated that he was able to get a high chair for his kid, and that was extremely helpful. During this pandemic, I believe the university realized an important error. As their planes were grounded and their missionary kids did not have a country to go to, they thought, well, maybe we should do missions here and support the island with hundreds of kids and funds. But then they realized they did not have many, if not any, long-term projects or supports outside of the YWAM base. I think this is critical to know and share, because I know how many in the community either do not know YWAM exists or they're completely indifferent. And during the coronavirus back in March and April, I was working with many organizations, nonprofits, and government officials to come up with plans as well as identify needs and meet them. One particular need was met when I was able to rally Josh Jensen from YWAM, and they rallied 80 volunteers from the university to help clean the entire Kealakekea Elementary School, helping the janitorial staff and providing help on the construction of the new playground.
2 minutes, Mr. Esparza.
Okay.
Could you summarize your testimony, please?
Okay, yes, my final thought. I can't speak to the construction plans. I just hope that YWAM can address the 3 big crisis factors on this island. But whatever it is at their finish line, I hope that instead of YWAM stakeholders and people from the mainland celebrating their achievement, that there is an integration of the community leaders, keiki, and families cutting the ribbon with them, because they know this is a blessing to them and the Aina. So the university, as they continue to keep checking their hearts, know that this land is not to be taken for your personal gain, and you are a steward. Continue to love the people, provide for the widows and orphans, and love the Aina, the sacred land, and see your favorite grow. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, before you sign out, I'm going to ask if any of the parties have questions for you, beginning with Ms. Garson.
No questions, thank you.
Okay, County?
No questions, thank you.
OP?
No questions.
No questions? Okay. Commissioners? Any questions? I might be.
It's a little frozen.
Oh, Chair, are you frozen?
Yes.
Fine, but we left off, I left off with asking the commissioners if there were any questions. Still frozen.
You're back.
Chair, this is Riley. I believe none of the commissioners have any questions for you.
Because we
lost it.
Chair, you're
I'm back.
okay.
Not sure what happened.
None of the commissioners has questions, Chair. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Esparza, for your testimony.
Thank you.
I am now going to admit, if I pronounce this correctly, Alapa'i Kowila.
Aloha.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Please state your name and address for the record and proceed.
Aloha mai kako wau no o Alapai Kaulia noho wau ma Waiaha. My name is Alapai Kaulia and I currently reside in the Ahupa'a of Waiaha, which is located in the same location or Ahupa'a as the University of the Nation. I am here.
Chair, this is Riley. We need the public witness to please slow down, and he's breaking up, so please speak more slowly so that we can be sure that we're catching your testimony. Thank you very much.
Okay. My name is Alapai Kaulia. I currently reside in the Ahupa'a of Waiaha. This is the same Ahupa'a that the University of the Nation is proposing. I am here to testify on behalf of the Haleo Hawaiian language class that they hold on campus. I have been part of that class since 2013. I have also taken Palama Nui, which is the college classes. First of all, I'd like to say that I'm here on behalf of myself. Through taking the Hawaiian language class through the University of the Nations, I am currently a teacher and helping cover the shortage of the teachers within the state of Hawaii because there's a shortage of Hawaiian language speakers. I was offered over $3,000 in scholarships to join these Hawaiian language classes because I am Native Hawaiian. Like I said, I've been teaching since 2014. I started the class in 2013, and being able to gain the language from this class as well as Hawaiian lifestyles from this class, I was offered a job by the Department of Education, and I have been working for them since 2014. In 2017, I moved up to the science teacher within the middle and high school of that class. And I truly believe that the Haleo class has been supporting the community. Since joining the class in 2013, I had been able to network with others that have been part of the class since 2011. And I have been able to join initiatives to get stones and boards in every home, helping the teacher shortage within the state of Hawaii. I have also been able to become a site coordinator for after-school programs through this Hawaiian language class. And I also have deeper understanding of place. And this class has also given me the ability to provide a future for our Kanaka, our future Hawaiians that are out there using the knowledge of our kupuna. So I fully support the University of the Nation. And prior to becoming a Hawaiian language student of theirs, about 24 years ago, I was able to get impacted by them in a low-income housing where they were able to come and provide food as well as spending time with us. So I really support what they're doing. And I know I'm not speaking on behalf of the school, but I know that there is a total of 9 people that came to our school. 2 are volunteers, 5 which were there before me. So I can say that this program has made a big impact on our community within the island of Hawaii. Mahalo.
Mahalo for your testimony. Are there questions for the testifier beginning with the petitioner?
Hi, Alapai. Kathy Garson, I'm the attorney for the petitioner. I just have one question. So when you went through the program, did you have to pay tuition for the language program?
I did not. So that was the scholarships that I was talking about. I was provided, there's a total of 7 classes. I was provided with $3,000 in scholarship myself. I also had family members, so I can say that my family has been personally impacted with at least $7,000 worth of scholarships into this Hawaiian language program. And I believe it's for the Native Hawaiians because when you go to the college, they're teaching it in an academic style, and that is totally different from how Hawaiians were teaching. We do it more, I learned more in a lifestyle.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chair. Chair Shoya.
Get him off dial-up.
Chair, are you there?
I am here, still here.
Okay. Petitioner just finished their questioning of the witness. Next will be. Okay.
I was able to hear all of that. I'm not sure what's happening here. County.
No questions, thank you.
OP.
No questions.
Commissioners. Commissioner Okuda.
Chair, for the benefit of the court reporter, could the person who has been speaking for the county identify themselves? Thank you.
This is Diana Mellon Lacey speaking for the County of Hawaii. And if you want me to repeat, the County of Hawaii had no questions for this testifier. Thank you.
Chair?
Yes.
Okay, I thought you froze again.
Yes, I'm not at the moment. Are there any further questions for Alapa'i? If not, mahalo for your testimony.
Mahalo.
Are there any other members of the public wishing to testify on this matter? If so, use the raise hand function. I'm going to bring in Wilfred Murakami, followed by Roland Rabara. Mr. Murakami, if you would enable your audio and video. I can see you. How's your audio?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning.
My name is
Do you
Wilfred.
swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes.
Okay. So state your name and address for the record and proceed.
Name is Wilfred Murakami. I reside at 81-979 South Kahapili Loop in Kealakekua. I am, did you want me to wait for you to give me the okay to testify?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So I was a sitting principal at Kealakekua High School until June of 2018. And I was the principal since the school opened. In addition to that, you know, I served about 48 years active service in the Kealakekua community. And so I have a long history in working with public education. As principal of the high school, I was able to have the opportunity to work with the University of the Nations and enlist their help in helping the school in general in a number of projects, whether it be serving, helping the community, and a part that is very close to my heart was helping the English learners in our school and in the community. And people, the volunteers as well as the coordinators, Chris Richards, who I primarily worked with a lot, was instrumental in helping us to provide the manpower needed to do tutoring, to build relationships, to help supervise the campus, to help provide transportation in certain instances, to provide access to their facility so that our kids could get to see, you know, the construction that was going on there and the development of some of their high-tech facility. Before I left, we had made some plans to be involved in video technology and trying to do a partnership between the school and the University of the Nations to use their recording and televising facilities. I found that the people really do, who came to the school, really love our community, and they want to be invested in the development of the children, especially. That's the aspect that I dealt with. In one program, which is teaching second language learners English, they volunteered several of their community members to come in and actually be trained as tutors with no compensation. They would meet with us, they would get trained, and then they worked with groups of students for about 2 or 3 months after we went through this training. So the short of it is that they've been an active participant in our community. They have not been a community that comes by for their own, well, I guess it's for their own ends, because they use to empower the community. And I have seen action on their part. And as I said before, I've been serving as a teacher, administrator for 48 years in Kona, primarily in the Kealakekua area. And I have never seen such long-standing quality volunteerism. We've had help from
Can I ask you to summarize, please, Mr. Murakami?
Sure. We've had help from other organizations episodically, but the University of the Nations and their volunteers have been very, very consistent in providing a willingness to help our kids.
Thank you. Questions for the witness, starting with the petitioner.
No questions. Thank you, Mr. Murakami.
You're welcome.
County.
This is Diana Mellon Lacey for the county. Thank you, Mr. Murakami. We have no questions.
Thank you for identifying yourself, County. OP.
No questions.
Commissioners. Commissioner Okuda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I only wanted to say, Mr. Murakami, thank you to you and your public school teachers. I think historically in this community, it's been education that has given opportunities to people in the community. So thank you again to you and local educators.
Thank you.
Anything else, Commissioner?
Hello, this is Nancy. Hello.
Hi.
Hi, this is Nancy. I wanted to also thank, as Commissioner Okuda stole my thunder, but I wanted to thank Mr. Murakami also for being willing to serve our students and the other testifiers also. I was really glad. I'm glad to hear from people in the community that University of Nations has been and is been involved with our Big Island community in the Kona area and helping to serve our general public. So I appreciate their on the grounds report, because otherwise it's just paperwork and, you know, lawyers that we get to hear from. So I appreciate the public coming forth. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cabral. Anything else? Thank you, Mr. Murakami, for your testimony.
Thank you for taking the time.
Yeah. Oh, Commissioner Ohigashi, excuse me. Commissioner Ohigashi.
No, I wanted to commend you, especially since it appears that you are on the side of the road parked in your car, unless that's a...
Yes, I am.
And I'd just like to make a comment that I think that one of the benefits of the Zoom technology is to permit this kind of testimony to occur. Thanks a lot.
I agree.
Yes. My internet connection is displaying the downsides of the technology, but your testimony is displaying the upsides. Okay, thank you for your testimony. I'm going to demote you back into the audience. I'm going to bring in Roland Rabara. If you could enable your audio and video. Roland, there we go. Aloha.
All right, can you hear me? Aloha. Can you hear me, Chair? Chairman, can you hear me?
Yes. I could hear you for a moment.
Okay.
I can hear you now.
All right. Okay. Hello and good morning, everyone. My name is Roland. First name, last name, Robot, spelled R-A. Born and raised.
I need to swear you in.
Okay.
Sorry.
Sorry. Okay.
And actually, I'm going to first ask you to. You're not driving, right?
After I tell you what I did for my lifetime, I'm going to guarantee you I'm not.
Okay.
A good portion of my life.
You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Now, please proceed.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Roland. First name, last name, Rabara, spelled R-A-B-A-R-A. I'm born and raised resident here in Kona. I just retired actually from the Hawaii Police Department after just short of 29 years of service. As I stated earlier, I was born and raised here, so I'm very familiar with some of the good stuff, obviously, that YWAM has done in our community as well too. As you already know, they've been University of Nations have been part of our community for about 40 years now. They've been involved in many different types of activities. A lot of it involves projects, various projects, obviously spread out to our community as well too. I know when they first started rolling in as far as students and work, staff, they actually used to play in a softball with us as well too. So that's when we really got to know a lot of the early leadership of the campus at that time. As we move forward, and I'm going to relate some of this to my work experience. When you talk about a university campus, and we're talking about having several thousands of students there, you look at it, you compare it to some large university where you got problems that might occur obviously on those campuses. And I can testify basically, from my experience that we really never did actually get any calls at that campus, calls for service at that campus from the law enforcement standpoint I'm talking about. And in the meantime, however, we did grow a relationship where we could actually do some training there as well too. We did some active shooter training there at the campus. Sometimes it's kind of tough to do it on high school campuses, but they were nice enough to actually have us do several trainings actually there and involve the students as well too. And that prepares us obviously in the hopefully unlikely event that something like that would obviously happen in our state. So, my basic testimony is to really let everybody know that they've been a part of our community for a long time. We haven't, again, from the law enforcement standpoint, we haven't had to deal with much of anything actually at that campus, outside of a few minor things along the way. But nonetheless, they've showed that they are good neighbors, obviously, to everybody here in Kona, including, our first responders as well too. So I can have nothing but, aloha for the campus, for all the people involved as well too. And I could see that their vision, obviously, to expand the campus and take on another 60 acres to build a high school and all the things that they're actually looking at doing can only be positive in this community. And right about now, I would imagine that we need a lot more positivity in our lives, especially with it's pretty much all I have to say.
Great. Thank you for your testimony. Ms. Garson.
Thank you, Mr. Rivera. No questions.
Okay.
This is Diana Mellon Lacey for the County of Hawaii. We have no questions. Thank you, Mr. Rivera.
No question. Thank you.
Thanks.
Commissioners, Commissioner Okuda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Rabara, for your testimony. It might have been my internet connection, but I kind of lost the last part of your sentence or your testimony. Can you repeat that, just the final part you were saying?
Pretty much just reiterate the fact that they've been good. YWAM's obviously been a good neighbor to all of our people here in Kona, both from a business standpoint, from the first responder standpoint, you know, which I was a part of, obviously, and just in general. I mean, they have, you know, like I was mentioning earlier, our calls for service at that, you know, that campus there, really, you know, justifies the fact that we got no calls up there. And when you're dealing with a university of young adults, obviously, there's going to be a tendency, obviously, you can look at, you know, our Manoa campus as well as our UH campuses abroad. You know, you see stuff that'll happen on those campuses as well, too. Like I said, we did get calls there for service, but they were very minor in nature, nothing real serious. But most of all, is opening doors to allow us to actually do some training on the campus became very important as well, too, for us moving forward.
Okay, and again, it might have been my internet connection, but at the very beginning of your testimony, you identified who you had retired from. I don't want to assume, I think I can figure out the context, but can you state, just so that it's clear on the record, who or what organization you retired from after all those years of service?
You may be frozen.
I'm sorry, your response kind of broke up again. So can you repeat what you just said, please?
Yeah, I retired from the Hawaii Police Department, and I was actually assigned to the Kona District. I was a patrol sergeant.
Thank you very much for your testimony, and thank you very much for your service to the community.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you very much for your testimony.
Appreciate it, Chair. Have an awesome day.
Members of the, are there any other members of the public wishing to testify on this matter? If so, please use the raise hand function. Seeing none. One moment. I'd like to begin with the status report on the docket, but what I'd like to do is to note that while now for the last few minutes, my internet connection seems stable, and I'll meetings, so I know anything within the four causing interference be something out of my control from outside. Yeah, I think I froze right there.
Yeah. Again.
Chair.
Let's see.
The moment you said you were not having problems, we started to have problems with your transmission.
I think the judicial term is bachi. So what I'd like to suggest, hopefully this will not freeze, is that I will continue to, for the safety of my LUC colleagues and staff downtown, I'd like to remain at home if possible, but if this continues much, I will declare a recess for about a half hour and head down to the office. So, but with that, can we start with your status report, Ms. Garson?
Yes, good morning, Chair Schroyer and members of the commission. Again, Kathy Garson for the University of Nations, Kona. Francis Oda from G70 and Jeff Overton from G70 are also going to assist in the status report. But if I could just kind of tell you where we're going to go with this, that would be great. So as you know, thank you for allowing the university the time to file their motion to amend, which, as you mentioned, was filed on March 23rd. And at the same time, we also withdrew the 2006 motion to amend so that the record was clear and you would only have one motion to amend pending. I want you to know that the university didn't stop work upon filing the motion to amend. They actually continued on, and there was a conceptual infrastructure master plan that was filed as a supplement later on in June. And so we'll talk about that. OP and the county, I won't speak to them, but they did support the motion saying that there's a viable project moving forward. As what we're going to discuss in a few minutes is, since we last appeared in front of you in January, there were a few modifications to the project. So we wanted to point these out. We took into account some of the things that the commissioner said to us and made some modifications to the project. So we do want to go over that. And Mr. Oda will first present to you. There was a question about how the sense of place was going to be incorporated into the design. And so he's going to discuss that with you. I think he can also, if he's willing, speak a little bit about the volunteerism at the University of Nations, because he is involved. Then we're going to have Mr. Overton discuss the changes that have been made and also give you an update on basically the Chapter 343 implications moving forward. So if we can allow Mr. Oda in, and if you can also allow Mr. Overton in at the same time, I believe Mr. Overton was going to share his screen for Mr. Oda to speak, if that was possible.
That's possible, Ms.
Okay,
Garson. About how long do you envision your presentations?
I think Mr. Oda will be about 10 minutes and Mr. Overton perhaps about 20. So I'm thinking a half hour, but please don't hold me to that.
Okay, so I don't know if that was my side or your side, but can you repeat that?
So I'm thinking 10 minutes for Mr. Oda, just for his presentation, not including any questions. I think Mr. Overton is probably about a half hour or less without any questions.
Okay, well, let's start off with Mr. Oda. I'm going to move both Mr. Oda and Mr. Overton into the meeting. Hi, Francis.
Hi, Jonathan. How are you?
Very well. I'm going to swear both of them in so they can talk freely. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
I do.
Thank you. Thank you. Please proceed, Ms. Garson. And Mr. Overton, you have the ability to share screen.
Hi. Sorry, I'm sorry. I thought I lost everything, but he's sharing his screen. Hi, Mr. Oda. Can you please introduce yourself to everyone? Give a little bit of your background, and then I kind of prompted the commission that you were going to talk about the design and the sense of place that was incorporated, and then also about your experience and involvement with the University of Nations.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Aloha, Mr. Chair and members of the Commission. It's a pleasure to talk to you today. to give you a little bit of my background, you already have my resume and all that, but I was asked by Catherine to share a little bit more background, especially in regard to my education. I got my architecture degree from Cornell, and then my Doctor of Architecture from University of Hawaii. I'm a member of the AICP, that's the planning organization. I'm also a pastor of a church here in Honolulu that's located in Chinatown that ministers largely to people who are used to be homeless, out of prison, and sort of out of dysfunctional habits such as alcohol, drugs, things like that. In the late 1990s, I worked extensively with George Kanahele, who I think many of you know or knew. George and I worked towards defining a kind of Hawaiian sense of place as we understood it at that time. And we made many talks, gave many talks around Honolulu jointly about this subject, and even went as far as New Zealand together, requested by the East-West Center to talk about how this might apply to Maori land and Maori culture. And then again in the late 90s, when the Convention Center competition came up, Momi Kazumero and I were asked by the state to define Hawaiian sense of place. That was the first time that that term had actually been used officially in any kind of a state document. And that was a requirement of the competition for the Convention Center. George was on one of the teams. In fact, the team that ultimately won the competition. So Momi and I had again a series of talks that we gave to not only the contestants, but also the larger community about what Hawaiian sense of place was, because that was a new term that today is very commonly used, of course. Well, in general, things have developed much further than that, but I just want to share with you how this might apply to this project, how this does apply to this project. And what we wanted to do was give these students who come from all over the world a setting that, while modern, would reflect a sense of Hawaiian place and culture. And as you know, this land was extensively disturbed by agriculture, and right now it's covered with kiawe and a lot of brush. But it does retain certain archaeological features that contribute a lot to the meaning of the place, and especially the Kuakini Wall. And what we did was what we do for all our projects. We first identify the piko, and all of us know what the piko na'au is, which is related to the navel, the source of energy, life. And we always locate first the piko na'au, and I'm gonna show this to you now. Jeff, could we have that screen?
Can folks see the master plan? Very good.
And could you put the palm over the area of the piko na'au, which is there in the center? There's also, as probably many of you already know, because you get presentations from so many people, there's also piko po'o, which is the location and source of ancestral knowledge, spiritual knowledge, and all of that. And that's the chapel here, where you see the palm. And the piko mai, which in general relate to the future generations, represented by the genitals. And the lower school, the high school, that we defined as the piko mai, the younger people, the next generation. And what we did after that, as we always do, then we put facilities that really relate to these concepts of the Pico around what we sense are the locations of these Picos. So for example, the Pico Mai, we have things like the Student Resource Center. Of course, we have a large gathering place there. We have a cafe. We have instructional facilities. And what this does is give a sense of real place to the center of this extension of the campus. The Pico Po'o, the chapel reflects the knowledge, the spirituality of the place. And at the same time, the school down below was developed around what we consider to be the Pico Mai. What we did in terms of connecting these up, and I see that in this group, what I'm going to do right now is go to ask you, Jeff, to go to the rendering. This gives you a sense of the area of the Pico Na'au as well as the Pico Po'o. And this will be the centering place. It includes the resource center, the cafe, and classrooms, as well as the chapel. There was a historic trail bisecting this, and what we've done is connect these Pico with a path, and you can see it here. This path, we sort of wanted to make it like a dry stream bed. Water, as you all know, is very valuable there, so we only have water at certain key locations. I think you can see a little water here, little up Malta. Yeah, right around there, right? Well, yeah, absolutely. At the chapel, also a major water feature. But the idea there is water is very symbolic in the Christian religion. But the dry stream bed would be defined by rocks and pebbles, as well as dryland vegetation ground cover. And it connects these Pico in a continuous way. And of course, there are paths elsewhere, but this is the major spine of the campus. We've now go back. Oh, well, why don't you stay here and come out a little bit in this drawing. A little bit more. You can see here on the corners, 3 of 4 major archaeological sites. We've tried to honor them. And actually at the beginning, we had this idea of integrating them more into the function of the campus. But then we realized that 3 of the 4 have EV. And so what we decided to do was honor them by certainly preserving them, putting the wall around them, the 20-foot setbacks and all of that, but not really physically involve them. However, here you see a little indication of a concept of halipili. Jeff, can you point that out? Yeah, that relates to the cafe area, and there are all kinds of activities that go on the campus that are demonstration of cultural arts of Hawaii. And we think this could be one of the centers of them, but they will be distributed throughout the campus. We also envision that there'll be imprints of Hawaiian art and graphics throughout the campus that will give it a stamp of being here in Hawaii and not somewhere else. The Kwakini wall will be restored, as you see in the application. Now, the landscaping is going to be largely native dryland species. So we're going to limit the grass, but we are going to have a few areas of grass, which, as you know, require a lot more irrigation. But what we want to do is do it sustainably. So we will recycle brown water to irrigate the landscaping. Now, the buildings are going to follow what I call the ranch style of Kama'aina architecture, which is sort of the signature style of Kailua Kona. And so the buildings are going to be largely wooden, which, as you know, is a renewable material with metal roofs. It's going to be this whole complex will be very sustainable in that it's going to be naturally ventilated. There'll be PV on the roofs. There are going to be water-saving devices. As I mentioned, the recycling of brown water and improved stormwater system. And the buildings are going to be built into the slope in that they won't be more than 2 stories above the upslope elevation. So the more or less the Mauka elevation. That's going to preserve Mauka views from any properties at higher elevations. So in general, the campus, we hope, will reflect its place in Hawaii. And while it's going to serve the needs of this international student body that's called to serve nations, we want them at their time, in their time here in Hawaii, to really sense more of the culture, learn more of the culture, and really be able to be responsible for extending the culture here on this campus. And Catherine asked me to talk about volunteerism. The history of YWAM, and I have been familiar with YWAM for 30 or 40 years. I am chair of a global organization called TOW, Transform Our World. And Lauren and YWAM and University of the Nations are very much, we work together on things. And I have been just always super impressed by their commitment, the commitment of the people that they train, and the volunteers that they have. The volunteers are from all levels, but there are many that are volunteers that have had phenomenally successful careers in engineering, business, whatever it might be. And on this project, I'm actually one of those volunteers. It is something we give not just to them, but to the community and to this global enterprise, because the focus of YWAM is really to serve nations, and usually, well, always the most needy in nations. And so I think the volunteers are motivated by that, and they give sometimes years of their lives to helping YWAM. So thank you very much, mahalo, for listening to me, and I'm happy to take questions at the appropriate time.
Thank you. Mr. Oda, Ms. Garson, is Mr. Oda available for questions from the county, the OP, and the commissioners?
Yes.
Okay. Maybe Mr. Overton, if you want to stop screen sharing for a moment. Thank you. Questions from the county for the witness.
This is Diana Mellon-Lacey from the county. We have no questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Apuna.
No questions. Thank you.
Commissioners. Commissioner Chang.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you so much, Mr. Oda. I would say, as a native Hawaiian, I greatly appreciated the thoughtful presentation, especially the great sensitivity that you and your team with the university put into this design. So thank you very much. I appreciated that. I know we talk about the 3 PICOs, and but not everybody truly integrates that into actuality. So again, I appreciated your presentation and specifically how that's being integrated into this project. I just wanted to ask, with respect to the consultation process, and maybe you'll have others who are going to talk about this, so if you're not the appropriate person, but I understand that there's been EV on some of these archaeological sites. So how are those families engaged in your process, if they are?
Yes, I'm not the one to address that, so you might ask that question of Jeff.
Okay.
That has been considered, however. Yes, of course, it has.
Okay. And so the other question maybe that you can answer is, a lot of the nations, their financial plan is based upon volunteerism. And a lot of it dealt with actually very skilled expertise like yours. So, I mean, is this the level of volunteerism where skills that would otherwise you would have to pay for a consultant, there are volunteers who are willing to do it at no cost, but to support the University of Nations?
Yes, in my experience, I've met a number of these volunteers, and it kind of blows my mind. These are people who have been extremely successful, and probably one of the reasons they can volunteer is because they have been so successful. They literally leave where they are, many of them are retirees, and come and live on the campus to help. And that's usually couples, so the spouse will follow, or be part of that. And they become a huge resource, not in the area, only in the area of their expertise, but their maturity as successful people, as models to these young people who, you know, have, a lot of them have just gotten out of high school. And some of them have taught the courses. I know I have lectured to a number of the courses, and it kind of blows my mind. It makes me feel very old when I go there because these people are so young, and there's kind of, to a certain extent, they're dedicated but kind of clueless. You know, I shouldn't say that, but they are. And I think these volunteers really give something you cannot buy. You cannot buy this kind of wisdom. You cannot buy this kind of talent that they have. Most people, even if they had a lot of money, couldn't even afford to hire them. And some of these have come with in areas of technology. And so in certain ways, University of the Nation is at the cutting edge of a lot of technical development there, film development. And I think a lot of what we see there, which arguably might be in the adjacent parcel, you know, the existing campus, is arguably $100 million or so of development. Started off 40 years ago or so, piece of land very similar to the one we have right now. And I think they developed that largely in the same way that they are projecting to develop this. And so I think they have a track record that they can rely on as they move forward. And in fact, if anything, as you would well know, you kind of develop momentum as you go along. When you know you haven't really started yet, it's hard to get people to jump in. But at this point, they're at a critical mass. And so I believe that they can be confident in that area.
Thank you. So in other words, I mean, you can quantify the volunteerism into a monetary value that is, I guess, because I'm trying to see, that's part of their financial plan.
Yes.
Is based upon this volunteerism. So there is, I mean, you've done enough development in Hawaii that the quantification of that volunteerism does equate to real dollars towards their financing.
Yes, it does. And we actually interacted with them on that, both questioned them, challenged them, but they are going by past experience.
Okay.
And so I have to, we had to accede to that. And I think that their past experiences proved to be amazingly successful.
Thank you very much. I really
You're
greatly
welcome.
appreciated your testimony. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Okuda has questions, but we have been going an hour and 15 minutes. I'd like to take a 10-minute break, which is necessary for various reasons. So it is 10:15. We will reconvene at 10:25.
Chair, I hope I don't breach protocol if I can just ask a question before we start. If Mr. Oda knew my old boss, Roy Takushi.
Go ahead. Oh, you're muted, Mr. Oda.
Yeah, I wonder if you knew my my former boss, Roy Takushi. I mean, he was
absolutely.
I understand now why when he passed on the family directed donations to the New Life Church. I could not understand that because Roy was not a guy who would go to church, and now I understand. Yeah, he was my sensei. I always am grateful to him that he didn't fire me after my first few years working for.
Yeah, well, I learned a lot from Roy too.
Yeah,
that was a long time ago.
Yeah, he would never invite me out at night because I don't drink or smoke or gamble. So he thought I was.
Maybe he liked that because I didn't drink or smoke either.
Okay.
Commissioner Chang, are you available?
Okay, now I understand. I could not understand the donation to the church. I just couldn't understand.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I just was on closed it.
No problem. Thank you very much, everyone. It's 10:27. We're back in session, and there was a question from Commissioner Okuda for the witness, Mr. Francis Oda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Oda, I know you have not been offered as an expert witness, but for those of us who might not know your full background, can you tell us a little bit about it? Like, for example, I noticed you have a designation FAIA. I think that means Fellow of the American Institute of Architects. Can you just give us a little bit of your professional background besides your planning background?
Sure. I am a fellow of the American Institute of Architects, which, as you all know, it's kind of this separate college that you get selected to as a practitioner. Maybe it's a function of how much white hair you have or something like that, but it's an honor to be there. I have been a principal in G70, which is an architecture, planning, engineering, interior design firm, which is going to be about 50 years old next year. And I was its president. I am now its chair. And it has, it's come before you many times in different forms, but we have a practice here in Hawaii Indonesia, throughout the Pacific, and Tahiti, Japan. It's quite extensive. I've also been involved in a lot of not-for-profit work for a long time, Aloha United Way, various other not-for-profit organizations. And I'm now the vice chair, soon next year to be the chair of Hawaii Public, or KHPR, Public Radio. So I've tried to involve myself with professional work. I've been, of course, president of the local American Institute of Architects chapter here in Hawaii, but that was many, many years ago. I have taught at the University of Hawaii. In fact, it was the University of Hawaii that brought me back from California, where I had a practice. I was 30 years old at that time, had a practice in Berkeley. With my partner was the vice chair of the School of Environmental Design here in Berkeley, UC Berkeley. And we were fortunate in winning many awards together. And so somehow the University of Hawaii found me, but my wife and I wanted to come back and raise our family back here in Hawaii. She's from Hawaii also. Is there any other aspect of my background?
Yeah, if you don't mind, and if you can try to speak a little bit more into your microphone, because
sure, sorry.
I'm having a little hard time hearing. It could be on my end. You have also been the architect of many, for lack of a better term, significant or big projects in Hawaii. Is that correct?
Yes. Over the years, I've been fortunate to work on all kinds of projects, from urban planning projects to, for example, the master plan of the city of Kapolei, master plan of Ho'opili. And so I've been involved in large urban plans to things like university facilities, school facilities, the hotels. For example, the two hotels on Lanai, the Laje Ko'ele, what used to be known as the Laje Ko'ele and Manele Bay. I also designed the recently reopened Four Seasons. The facility at Hanama Bay, for example, and that represents my feeling about architecture fitting into the environment. I felt there should be no building on the edge of Hanama. And so we did it in such a way that it doesn't look like a building. And my dissertation for my doctorate was Architects, Keepers of the Culture. So what I did was trace architectural expression, not from historic architecture, but from the Hawaiian perception of botany, geology, the land. And my belief has always been that, like everyone else, we need to be keepers of the culture. And we need to build a culture in such a way that it is stronger.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, this is Riley. Mr. Oda needs to speak up into his microphone. We're having difficulty hearing him.
Okay.
I'm sorry, is this better?
That's better. Certainly.
I
and
apologize.
then we might, with extreme respect for the witness, we do have a very long and full agenda today.
Absolutely, yes. So I'll conclude by saying that I think just as you are keepers of the culture, I believe architects, planners, others in the professional roles should be keepers of the culture also, builders of the culture.
Okay, Mr. Oda, based on your education, years of experience, do you have an opinion about the viability of the project that's being proposed here?
Yes, of course, the project is projected over a number of years, but I have absolutely no question about the viability of the project. I am fully convinced that the project will be developed. How many years it might take is a question, but that it be completed at some point, I have no question.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Oda, for your testimony. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Ohigashi.
Mr. Oda, I was just wondering, with regard to your present, I guess, conceptual plans, how does that differ from the 2003 plans that were on file in this case?
In 2003, the idea was to involve the campus, but in a much less significant way. And also, you know, that there was a venue for tourism, which had to do with the campus program, which they have to this day, which involves Hawaiian dance and song, music, and they call it Island Breeze. The proposal that we have now before you totally integrates the campus into it. So it's a matter of degree. And I believe that this total integration actually is a very good use of this land, because to have developed it partially for housing, well, it involves housing right now as we propose it, but for people directly related to the program. So I think that's a positive.
The other question that I have is, how does your proposed conceptual plan differ from the proposals made in the 2006 motion to amend? If you're able to answer that.
I'm not able to answer that. I have seen that, but not having been involved in that, I cannot say.
Okay. Thank you for your testimony, though.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, commissioners. Are there further questions from the commissioners? Mr. Oda, if I may, I know that the Kuakini wall is being preserved and restored in this plan. Could you speak at all to any consideration of its cultural or symbolic historical value and its relationship to the new plan?
Well, what we're doing is setting back from it. It does define the separation between the schools and this research complex that the university has as part of an ongoing program. But beyond that, we want to maintain and enhance the integrity of the wall, because we realize it's not just on our site, it's something that extends much further. So outside of restoring it and honoring it by the setbacks and maintaining a nice area around it, and of course interpretive information regarding it, and that will be true of all the archaeological sites. It's not consciously integrated. However, as you well know, I think you know possibly better than me, the Kuakini wall was always separated. It was always a division. And so what it is a division between now the schools, the younger kids, and this research center.
Thank you very much. Is there anything further, commissioners? Commissioner Cabral? No. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Oda. Mr. Overton was next. Is that right, Ms. Garson?
Yeah, so Mr. Overton was going to speak to you about some changes in the master plan since he last presented to you in January, and then the completion of the report that supported the motion to amend.
Okay, you want to do that now?
Yes, and I was a little bit off in my time estimate previously, so perhaps, I apologize. So perhaps Mr. Overton can give you a better idea of how long he might take.
Okay, well, I mean, I will note that January 2020 seems like about 5 years ago. So we were all off on our time estimates of how 2020 has gone. Mr. Overton, you're muted, but if you want to start in.
Yes, Chair, good morning. Good morning, members of the Land Use Commission. Jeff Overton, I'm Principal Planner with G70, and pleasure here to present with Dr. Oda, who is also the University Architect for the University of Hawaii. He failed to mention. It was his first position back here in Hawaii. So he has a long history with universities and with this project. So today I'm going to provide and I'll try to speak as quickly and clearly. I'll also go outside and jiggle the wires because I share the same that Jonathan lives in, and maybe that'll help us connect up tightly. But we'll flow through here, providing a brief presentation really on update of the master plan for University of Nations at Kona. Following our last status update hearing in January, the commission hinted to the petitioner that these plans were quite ambitious and that, you know, can you really do this, as some of the comments have been made today. And so at that time, we came away from that hearing discussing that very question. And the University of Nations leadership went back, worked with our architects and master planners to take a closer look at the plan and decide upon what were truly the necessary elements of the plan and where we could possibly consider trimming where necessary. So they reviewed this internally with leadership, went back, sharpened their pencils, and I'm going to present to you some adjustments that we've made to the plan that were part of the March filing and go through that. So I'll share screen here as I can do. Let's see here. Okay, hopefully folks can see that, yes? So here is the January exhibit for the overall master plan. And I'll try to zoom in just for better views on your personal devices. What we've shown here is the removal of 6 of the dormitories in the plan where these red X's fall. You can see we had sort of a cluster of dormitories in this Mauka position here and a couple of other locations where dormitories are being dropped out of the plan. So 6 buildings have been removed from the overall dormitory program in the petition. As well, we are eliminating 2 of the instructional buildings right here in this location here. Now we're able to do this basically by carefully reviewing the program. It matches up with a reduction in the enrollment from what was a 5,000 student count at the full development period down to 3,000 students in this program here. So the thinking has been dialed back a little bit, or taking a perspective here that in some ways this will relieve the density on the project, the development requirements, the overall cost, and yet still really service the projected program needs here and furthering their mission. So the revision to remove these 8 buildings actually results in an increase in open space on this property from what was 2% back in the January filing to a total of 56% in the current one. Sorry, I'm going to close this. Okay. So with this removal, I want to show you the next kind of generation of the plan here. You can see this is laid out nicely here. We've got much more spacious kind of grounds here that allow the dormitories to lay out properly in this location, frees up some space in the instructional area, and as Francis had described, kind of this Pico Na'au and the area here, that's the center of the campus. Now in March 2020 filing, G70 also completed its environmental planning report to support the motion to amend. And as was explained previously, the environmental planning report includes updates to previous technical studies that were done for the petition area. I described these briefly at our update hearing in January. And we promised that we'd share with you the summary findings from the environmental planning report, specifically the technical studies that were in there. So the studies that were conducted were a natural resource study, a flora fauna study, mobility analysis report, which is really a fancy name for a traffic study that was done, and it addresses the other multimodal transportation elements. A preliminary infrastructure assessment, civil engineering for the site development, water supply analysis was done, cultural impact assessment, update with the Kapakai Okaina analysis that was included here. The archaeology had largely been completed previously, and those studies, as well as the SHPD correspondence, were included in the environmental planning report. And then we also addressed the project's conformance with the county general plan and the draft general plan update, as well as the Kona community development plan. It's important for us to emphasize here that the petition area is it's previously in the state agricultural district before it was reclassified over a decade ago. There are very poor agricultural conditions on this property. All the soils are Land Study Bureau rated as E, which is very poor, among the lowest levels of ag productivity. It doesn't mean some farming can't occur on here, because there are obviously some in the demonstration projects that are included on the campus. But it's a very restricted agricultural capability here. It's in an urban area that's classified as medium density urban in the general plan, as well as the Kona CDP. So if we could, let us provide you with kind of a high level of the technical studies. I'll come back to this screen. The ECOS is the consultant that provided us with the flora fauna study, and with the exception of the Hawaiian hawk, which was seen circling the thermals overhead, there's no plant or animal species that are protected status or proposed for protection under either federal or state endangered species programs. None of these were detected on the petition area. There's no federally delineated critical habitat for any of these species included here or close by to the petition area, and the study made recommendations as to lighting, which the petitioner will agree to comply with there, dealing with seabirds. Now, the mobility assessment report, the traffic study, was conducted by Farron Piers. Basically for phase 1, there's going to be some modest effects associated with the driveway of the existing campus driveway, and that refuge lane was recommended at that location. This could be accomplished within the existing highway with restriping and some minor pavement modifications. But in phase 2 and 3, with growth of traffic, ambient traffic on the highways, as well as the campus population growing, the petitioner will be have both Queen Kahumanu and Kuakini Highway. We're aware of phase improvements that are programmed for both of those facilities. And so it's a nice meshing of the growth of the campus along with the infrastructure improvements. The petitioner could be required to contribute funding or select improvements here, and that further consultation with both DOT and DPW would be required as we consult with this going forward. It's many years out. The intention was that the petitioner would make improvements on their own property with such as right-of-way, right-in lanes, right-out lanes, which would connect to the highway. And that's a kind of a softer way for the project to interface with the highway and not cause disruption and flow. G70 Civil Engineering did the preliminary infrastructure report that's included in the environmental planning report. And it indicated that a new water source would be needed ultimately for the full build out of the campus here. They identified 3 potential sources, working with Tom Nance, Water Resource Engineering. And so that information is included in the report as well. They connected with the county with regard to the wastewater facility capacity, and the DEM had indicated that they had capacity available at their Kealakekee wastewater treatment plant to accommodate the planned increase in demand generated by the campus improvements. Finally, we've also provided updated cultural assessment and the Kapakai analysis. And these studies indicated although there may over time been significant and valued cultural resources on this property, the CEIA did not identify any past or ongoing traditional or customary practices. And the reports made recommended archaeological and cultural, say, precautionary monitoring measures. As Dr. Oda had pointed out in the master plan, we have set aside and protected with walls the payout structures of the different archaeological preserves on the property. And so those are indicated in the master plan with setbacks and walls and protection. Dr. Reckman is the archaeologist at ASM Affiliates who can provide further details on that as necessary. So with the supplemental filing that was made in June, civil engineers prepared a conceptual infrastructure master plan for the report here. And the petitioner was really looking forward to advancing the project towards a county rezoning application with the conclusion of the motion to amend. And so I'm going to show a couple of exhibits that relate to the infrastructure. And Chair, I've probably got about 5-10 minutes left max here of this presentation. Here is, I'll zoom this back. Sorry. This is a existing infrastructure and first phase site and utility plan that was included in the report. So this is an important exhibit because I know one of the questions that came from the commission is what are the initial phases of development in the petition area, and some of this is explained in this graphic that I'll walk us through. There's actually quite a lot of work that will be completed in the phase 1 infrastructure plan. We believed that with the existing campus infrastructure, the demands are modest, and that we could use many of the existing utility connections to tie into. One of the major elements in here, shown in blue, where we've kind of grayed out what is the existing campus, but you can see this blue line that comes up through the center, and this is really the center spine road of the campus. And it meanders along the boundary of the petition area here, and will form the connections, the driveway and access points for the first phase of development of the expansion area. So you can see the parking area that's associated with the area that eventually will feed into the schools but service the existing campus parking demand, the student resource center here, and access drive for 2 of the instructional buildings in here. As well, we have 2 of the dormitories in the phase 1, athletic practice field and gymnasium, and then further up, additional support facilities for parking, storage facilities, industrial use up at the top here. And a couple of the points, the spine access road, which exists today, is actually quite narrow. And needs to be widened and improved as it comes in here. We'll have penetrations where these driveways come in and feed, and then the utilities will be connecting up. We have water lines that are spanning through the campus and doing the extension here. So the water system's being expanded. The sewer system as well is connecting up and coming into connect with the existing sewer system on the existing campus side. There is a road that follows the perimeter of the petition area shown in this red ribbon here. And it basically follows the whole southern property boundary adjoining the adjacent community here. There's also a wall that will be built along this boundary in here. And so the combination of the wall and this access roadway that becomes part of the overall transportation plan on the campus will provide access for construction, support for construction staging of the various elements, as well as equipment and access, and then form an important fire break with the community from this 62-acre area that is very overgrown. Not that we've had a fire hazard here, but we're always paying attention to that in our planning and in the Kona community, that we want to be cognizant of measures to protect against fire in these areas. So that will be a good benefit in here. As we look ahead to the full build out, and now we've got all the campus facilities are shown in the, I'd call it the reduced scope development plan that I had described to you before. And this again, built in phases. You can see all the pieces of it that are coming in. So we have the water lines that run through, the sewer lines that come through and connect, all the roadway systems and the built facilities. In this infrastructure analysis, some new findings emerged, particularly with the wastewater system plan. And it's been determined that a new sewer connection needs to be made with the existing sewer line that extends along Kuakini Highway. And so we've circled this area here that shows connection to the sewer system. The existing sewer connects down here at this part, but this would be a new connection here. This in conjunction with possible lane widening here within the county system at the entrance, the new entrance to the petition area, that would happen in phase 2 and 3. We began to talk about this as a potential for a Chapter 343 Hawaii Revised Statute, our environmental law trigger, because we're utilizing county lands here. Public lands is a trigger under Chapter 343. Where we were last January, we believed, because this area is so urbanized with development on both sides, and Makaya, the petition area, and the robust utilities that exist within the existing campus area, we really believe that we'd be able to work with the existing infrastructure connections without making improvements on county or state lands here. After studying it in greater detail, the feeling is here at this point that very likely we're using state and county lands here, and that an HRS Chapter 343 trigger will require compliance through either preparation of an environmental assessment or potentially even an environmental impact statement. So that is a new factor that we have to address in terms of planning and the pathway here forward. Again, an EA was not prepared as part of the project before. Everything was done with an environmental report that supplemented the prior petition and filing since then. The good thing is we do have all the existing technical studies in hand now that address the resource areas and the infrastructure concerns. And so it really is going to come down to us determining what level of document needs to be done here, and going through the process to get approval. So we would like to request respectfully to the commission here that we would come back with a motion for the LUC to be the approving agency that accepts the EIS under Hawaii Administrative Rules 11-200.1, be the accepting authority here for this EIS. So Kathy wears the legal hat and she can speak more formally to that, but that's the conclusion of my summary update here, and I'm ready to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Overton. Are there questions for Mr. Overton from the county?
This is Diana Mellon Lacey for the County of Hawaii. The county has no questions at this time. Thank you.
OP.
No questions.
Commissioners. Commissioner Wong.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Overton, no, thank you for the presentation. The question I have is, this is a status report, and I guess the petitioner is looking at doing other things to their project. How long more would this be? If you have to go through an EIS project, and everything else, how much more time will you need?
So and because we have the technical studies in hand, we feel like we could move very quickly. An environmental assessment could take 5 to 6 months. An EIS would be probably more like 9 to 10 months. Again, because we need to come before you for actions that relate to approval of the documents and such. We'd be subject to your availability on calendar, but I'd call that an expedited timetable, knowing we have much information available to us and we don't have to start from scratch.
Right. It's just that, I guess the commission did change the boundary amendments, and from that time to now, it's almost like nothing has been done. And to me, or it appears. And so it looks like now we have to do other things before we even break ground. So it's just that, how much longer? Or that's the question, how much longer? Or then they're going to say, something happened, or then they want to, order to show cause again, or that's the question I'm having in my mind. Can you say something about that?
Well, at least from our side at G70. So we've been supporting, as described in January and then again today, we've been supporting on the architecture and master planning side. We've been supporting on the civil engineering side, as well as the planning and environmental consulting side. I would say that we've been quite busy actually helping University of Nations Kona address all of these pieces. And as mentioned earlier, we were loading up to go forward with the project district rezoning at the county level, which takes us to a higher level of detail. So what you're not seeing is the level of rigor that's gone into each of those major disciplines in the time since we saw you last in January. We have all this information from these technical studies, so there's an actual team that's working on this. We talk every week. We have a team of, say, 4 that are working on it in our shop, and this group of 5 or 6 consultants, plus the attorneys and the people at University of Nations. So there's a whole team that's working away on this every week. It is not on hold or in limbo. We're progressing forward, and that's where we discovered this wrinkle that honestly, I'm glad we're out in front of it. And that if this needs to happen and we do officially trigger, again, we want to consult with the proper agencies, state and county, to be sure there is a trigger here. and is possibly exempt, but we want to be have an abundance of caution and not get hung up on a 343 technicality or so. That's why we wanted to bring this fully transparent, bring it right to the commission and say, hey, this is what we found, and it looks like we need to stay on progress. We've got to accomplish this other task. Over.
So the question I have is, this is just hypothetical. Is it better to change back the land to ag and then come back when everything's set and, you know, hit it all at one time, all these changes, the EIS and everything, you know, and go from there? And I mean, in your expertise and seeing all these other things that you came in front of us, would it be faster to do it that way than, you know, amending and all this other things?
Well, I'm going to let Kathy come out with the formal opinion on behalf of the owners here, the university. But you know, you folks are very tuned in on where we're at with the project now, and frankly, I don't see the sense in backing up and starting over. I think if we can get all the pieces together here, we can move forward. This is just a compliance requirement as we move ahead, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, it's just that I'm very concerned because we also had the issue about the affordable housing in one of the conditions, and now we're kind of almost like throwing that out into never land. And so it's just one of those things in my head that's, you know, running through when I hear this. So that's all I'm just trying to say.
Understood.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Overton.
Thank you, Commissioner Wong. Commissioner Chang.
Okay, there I go. And Chair, you're there. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, and thank you so much, Mr. Overton. I really appreciated your update. So this is sort of a follow-up with Commissioner Wong's line of questioning. So there's a status report, there's an order to show cause, and there's a motion to amend. And now you're raising the potential issue of coming back to the commission to be the accepting agent for the EIS. So, and maybe Kathy or your attorney might be the best person to address this, but what I'm hearing you say, because I actually quite appreciate the fact that you have all done a lot more thoughtful work in this new plan, and it seems to be supportive and very viable and a much more reflective of this community and what may be best. And looking at the surrounding property, it doesn't appear as if going back to ag may be the best use of this property. So nonetheless, you're giving us this update in the status report. And then there's an order to show cause, but a motion to amend the original LUC, what we approved on the conditions. So I just want to confirm that since we met the last time, there's been no substantial use of the property. All of the work that you've been doing has primarily been technical studies and reporting, but you've not really done anything on the property itself. Can you just confirm that?
Our focus has been work on these plans and studies. So I would need to check with university if there's been any further improvements to some of the initial development components within the petition area. I know that they've done work on the archaeological preservation pieces with the walls protecting, and which is, I think, the right way to start. You want to make sure you're protecting the sensitive resources. And so that work is progressing. I know they are advancing towards getting that perimeter road cleared along that edge and getting that started, but I don't know the exact extent of what they've done there. Those are two things that I'm aware of. The water piece is also something that's very actively being pursued to be sure that, you know, it takes a while to get all the pieces together for a future water system. So characterizing the different pieces, all of the major pieces that are in motion, but there's not a lot of, I'd say, yellow trucks out there moving dirt and, you know, doing major projects right now.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And maybe we'll just ask your counsel to confirm that. I guess for me, my concern is there was an existing, procedurally, there was an order to show cause. And so I just wanted to make sure that there's really been no activity since there was a motion to continue that pending the status report. So I just wanted to make sure that there was really goodwill amongst everybody, that nobody was doing anything to put the LUC in an awkward position with respect to no substantial use of the property. And so am I understanding your position that you are going to confirm whether 343 is triggered, or you're going to do 343?
At this point, it would be I'd say a reconfirmation of the brain trust that has led me to actually testify in front of saying we're going to do 343. So I would not have brought that up had we not felt fairly certain that we've got a trigger. And again, as I said before, when I came before you before, we really thought we were going to be able to work with the existing infrastructure connections, but that's not the case. The little sidebar, I mean, a lot of people 5, 6, 10 years ago, 343 was being interpreted very literally, so that people who had a water line or electric line coming into a single family residence were triggering 343. The rules were amended to pick up those things. In this case, you might call this a fairly minor action that triggers us to a position where we've got to evaluate all the new uses that are contemplated in the petition area. So it's a toe over the line, so to speak. But if there is one, we can't segment out the rest of the uses. So it does force us to document it and go through the process.
Because I did notice that Office of Hawaiian Affairs also submitted some comments and sort of also suggested the same thing. In an abundance of caution, it may be better just to do the 343, because if you do the 343, all of these these studies and updates that you've done will be much more elaborated in the EIS. Is that correct?
Correct, but we feel they're strong enough to go forward, but we will also check back with each of those consultants to make sure we meet that level of rigor. Good point.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. You've answered my questions. I appreciate the comments.
Aloha.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Chang. Commissioner Ohigashi.
So I tried to answer my own question that I asked Mr. Oda. And I'm looking at Exhibit 4 attached to your motion to amend, and that would be the original, I guess, would be the original approval in 2003. Then I looked at Exhibit 5, and that would be the 2006 request.
Would you like me to pull these up? I could actually screen share them if you'd like me to pull them up.
No. I don't need. I just wanted to share the record, and so and Exhibit number 2 attached to your motion to amend is the proposal that you have now. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I understood.
Yeah, I apologize. It can be quite confusing.
I have a comment and sort of like question. Maybe you can't answer it. Maybe your lawyer will answer it eventually. I look at the original type of the original approval in 2003 as being for that area as being sort of like a residential attached to some kind of, looks like a commercial kind of more venture in 2003. Then, which it has like a water park, or it seems to be having a water park. Then in 2006, my conception is that turned into more of a campus-oriented plan, and that included stuff like a stadium, a football stadium, which football could mean soccer, I guess, but football stadium looks like a softball kind of activities, and it looked like more of a campus and getting away from the commercial activity as well as the residential, more residential focused type of use. And then now, the petition area is being totally encompassed by the educational use. Is that is my perception wrong, or is that the genesis?
No, I think you've raised, and thank you for those comments. When I walked through this with the commission in January, that evolution of the plan, as you characterized it, it was a sort of a joint plan for the condominium component and the attraction, essentially, which is a kind of a revenue generator and attraction in the lower part. So that really didn't meet the mission of the school, the university, and their direction going forward. So that was, again, departed. And the 2006 plan, which we were not involved with, did very much so retool the plan to head towards a campus master plan and eliminate the condominium, eliminate the attraction, the water park, the PCC-like type venture. So that was a purposeful direction, but as you might recall, the layout of that plan was not done by our firm, and it very much did not fit with the lay of the land at all. The grading and earthwork and visibility of structures, the cultural context, both native and Kona cultural, it just really didn't work. So when we overhauled the master plan, Francis and his team spent quite a bit of time working with the new layout that was presented here earlier, that very much more reflects the working with the land, designing with nature here and the sort of sustainable approach to the campus, much less earthwork, and really just fits better. So Commissioner, I hope that addresses your question.
Well, yeah, it sort of does, but I was just trying to find out, since you've determined that there's a 343 trigger with a plan that seems to be less intensive and requires less infrastructure use, why would the 2006 plan not create a trigger? If you know.
At that point, again, we were not involved with the action at that point. I don't know if they had done the level of detail that we had done in terms of infrastructure master planning. So University of Nations engaged G70 civil engineer to really dig into the details to be sure that we could serve wastewater, our water requirements, utilities and access. And that's when this was discovered, just really in recent time here. So I'd say it's a new twist, and we're just, doesn't help the timeline, doesn't help the cost, but it's where we are with the future build of the petitioner.
Thank you, Mr. Overton. I appreciate your professionalism in this matter. I do have a comment, Mr. Chair. I just thank God that we had them withdraw their motion, the 2006 motion to amend, and that we're not dealing with that at this point in time.
Thank you, Commissioner Ohigashi. I agree. Commissioners, further questions at this time for Mr. Overton? You know, I have a, if I may then, I have a whole bunch of questions about this overall project and how we get to the good end that we all want to get to. But one, this is almost like planning theory question for Mr. Overton. In terms of the theoretical layout of the 343 process, if you're doing an EIS, you're supposed to start, I believe, with the EISPN to ask all possible interested parties for the broad scope of what you're looking at, so that you can then direct your consultants to look and investigate these things that come up during the preparation notice process to guide the preparation of the document. And so I'm trying to reconcile that with your statements that most of these studies that you've already done are sufficient for incorporation into the EIS. So can you help walk me through that?
Sure. Thank you, Chair. In summary form, you addressed what is the EIS preparation notice. That's assuming an EIS is warranted here. It may be, I think that still needs to be determined. It may be the best course of action because this is a significant use here, even though we believe the impacts will be mitigated. So this preparation notice is really a scoping phase of the document, as you had said. And so coming into it with a very, I'd say, fleshed out master plan here, as well as technical studies, we have the benefit of really understanding the land and having worked through the technical solutions that address this property. So there is a change to the law that happened in 2019, which obligates under an EIS process, a public scoping meeting that happens during the publication of this EIS preparation notice. And so it's I'd say a doubly thorough process to vet the front end of a project to get all the input. And as you said, guidance towards aspects of the environmental review that should be fleshed out. And so, as professionals, and you've seen the team of experts that are working on the project with us, we've had to actually ask those questions of our team as we've gone through the master plan process and the environmental report that supports the motion to amend. And we'd like to feel that we've been thorough. We've been out there for agency consultations, as well as input from the community through the process. Not to say that there won't be more and greater rigor offered if we issue a prep notice or do the early consultation that's needed for an environmental assessment. That will give an opportunity for additional comments and direction, as you've indicated.
So if I'm going to try and rephrase some of your response in my understanding, and you can tell me if I've understood it correctly or not. Whether it's an EA or an EIS process, there is a commitment to undergoing the outreach, whether it's an EISPN and scoping meeting or the process under development of an EA, and that can and will, as appropriate, change the work that you've already done towards that. Is that correct?
I think it'll supplement it. Whether it will redirect it or just inform it to a greater level, that's what we'd hope. We're always open to hearing input from neighbors and the community and government and the resource agencies that need to review the specifics on historic, et cetera.
Okay, and I'll just note very briefly, as I think I have at previous hearings. I've read the assessment from Mr. Nance. I'll just state that his assertion that there can be no impacts from a water development from the so-called mid-level source are simply an assertion of his opinion, but actually are contradictory to some peer-reviewed scientific research in the area. So one would hope during the EA or the EIS process there would be greater analysis done than just the individual opinion of one person, no matter how professional they are.
Yes, we will have a report from him. One of the points that if there's a new water source developed is that the share always relates to, it's going to really benefit the county as well in terms of providing a third of that source to the public in this area as well. But we'll need to meet the rigor of all the analysis, as you point out.
Is there anything else, commissioners, at this time? Okay. Ms. Garson, what did you have remaining? We're at 11:24. We're going to have to take a lunch break at some point.
So as far as the status report, it was sort of a wrap up that we were going to be coming back to you with a motion for you to be the accepting authority or approving agency within the next few months. And so, and with that, and Mr. Overton's leave up, that was basically what we had for you for a status report, and then to respond to any questions that you had.
Okay, so let's do, if the commissioners are up for it, let's do comments from the county, comments from OP, and any questions of any of the parties from the commission, starting with the county.
This is Diana Mellon-Lacey for the County of Hawaii. We have no questions or comments at this time. Thank you.
OP, comments on the status report?
Can we support them in some way? Thank you. OP doesn't have any comments on the status report.
Okay, commissioners, questions for Commissioner Okuda, followed by Commissioner Chang.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question first to the county, and then same question to the Office of Planning. The question, if the county can give us their thoughts. What is the county's position on whether we should keep active the order to show cause proceeding that we have right now, or whether, given the testimony that's been given, whether or not a continued order to show cause proceeding is necessary? Does the county have a position on that question?
This is Diana Mellon-Lacey from speaking for the county. We do not see a reason to go forward with the order to show cause. I believe we stated that in our position statement as well.
And Mr. Chair, if I can ask the Office of Planning to—
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Position to, if Ms. Apuna or someone from the Office of Planning can also give their thoughts on that. Do we need this order to show cause proceeding to continue on or not?
No, we believe that the OSC should be dismissed, but I was going to speak to that in the next agenda item as far as the motion to have it rescinded. But yes, I mean, no, OP believes that the OSC should be dismissed.
Okay, and I apologize to everyone if I jumped the gun on that. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have no further questions.
No, it's okay. Obviously, while this is just a status report, these are the questions that are looming large before us. Commissioner Chang, followed by Commissioner Cabral.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Garson, can you confirm that there's been no substantial use of the property since our last hearing?
There has no, yes, there has been no ground disturbing activity on the property. And that was actually one of the stipulations as we move forward, that there not be, so there hasn't been any.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to confirm that. So, and I too, I don't want to prematurely, address the next agenda item, but in your summary, you did not talk about the order to show cause or the motion to amend. You just talked about the status report and that the next time you would come back to the commission would be to be the accepting agency authority for the EIS. So you also acknowledge there's a motion, order to show cause, and a motion to amend that needs to be addressed? Maybe I misunderstood your summary of the next steps.
Right, and the way I understand your process too is that motion to amend is filed, and we've also filed a motion for you to be the accepting authority or approving agency, and that while that is going on, you hold the motion in abeyance. That is my understanding of the process that was going to be taking place.
Okay, thank you very much.
Commissioner Cabral.
Yes, thank you. Kathy, this would probably be directed to you. I'm not as learned as my fellow commissioner attorneys, but I'm looking at my notes from January and I appreciate both Mr. Overton and Mr. Oda and their information and the drawings, because it looks so wonderful and it sounds so great. But you know me, I like my money. I'm concerned because I don't yet see, and maybe it's premature yet, that they're going to be able to, or you're going to be able to show where the funding is going to be coming. Somewhere in my notes, I showed that the phase 1 was going to be $14 million cost. And that would be certainly something that needs to be a piece to the puzzle at some point to move forward. And so I'm just kind of concerned about that. And then clearly affordable housing, you know, housing's my thing. So I think that those are both issues that somewhere down the road we need to make sure we address, because those are questions that are always looming in my brain. So I don't know if you have any answers now, but we'll need them if we keep moving forward.
Okay, and on the affordable housing issue, I mean, we have a whole, we can present to you the financial plan. I mean, it is as it was in January, with a combination of bank loan fundraising, donations, and the volunteer labor. So that has stayed the same. With respect to affordable housing, one of the attachments to the motion to amend was we met with the housing department, Office of Housing and Community Development, OHCD, and OHCD confirmed that for the university campus and dorms, they're not considered residential use, so that they don't trigger an affordable housing requirement. So to that degree, and philosophically, I'm sure it's because, you know, dorms are housing students, and that is affordable housing, even though it's not really considered a residential use. So the other issue I think that Mr. Ohigashi was bringing up was how this seems like a completely different plan. But one thing I'll say is that the 2003 plan did contemplate students and staff living in some of the housing. So there is that similarity, in addition to the educational component being the same for both. There was a 5-acre portion that was meant to be an educational facility there. So the financial, again, we have people on standby that can do that presentation. I think you have heard it previously. Affordable housing, we do have confirmation that the revised plan would not trigger as long as we meet certain zoning requirements. They also, and just before I forget, you know, we have somebody also on standby to talk to you about a project that the University of Nations has done called Kama'aina. And what they've done is they have taken an affordable housing facility and renovated it, completely renovated it. They manage it. There were 68 units, I believe, that were totally uninhabitable, and their people came in and renovated it, and now it's at 98% occupancy. And again, we have someone here who can probably more articulately and completely explain that to you. But even though they have, so they've done those, they have provided affordable housing for the community in the interim. And that's to answer Mr. Ohigashi's question as to, we waited all this time. There has been that affordable housing opportunity.
Okay, well, thank you very much for addressing those concerns. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Cabral, are you done?
I'm done. I'm done.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Chair.
Other commissioners? Commissioner Wong.
Chair, thank you. I guess the question will be for OP. I need this, just a hypothetical. In terms of, we got their status report, we got information that they're planning to change their, I guess, what they're gonna do or build on that site from the first iteration to now. What is your feelings on, amendment in terms of just starting from scratch?
They just did Pulelehua.
Yeah, I think that, I think there might have been some missteps in the beginning as far as, I think they asked for reversion, but they've had some guidance since then, and they've gotten their ducks in a row, and they have a new plan. As far as amendment after amendment, this has happened before, just recently, whether it's Pulelehua or Ka'ono'ulu, maybe they hadn't done the right thing in the beginning, but I think that they've gotten their stuff together, and they have this motion to amend that's pending, that what we've looked at, and we do believe that there is good cause to not revert and to allow them to present their motion to amend and work towards a successful project.
Okay. So the question, I'm going to ask you the same question that the chair just asked about the public notice issue for the EIS. What would your opinion on that be?
I think that the petitioner, their witness kind of explained, I think they have a lot of the information that would go into the review document, and they would supplement and do everything to make it, enough for environmental review. As far as the notice, I think, we are in a different stage of a project. We're not at the very beginning, but I don't think that there's any kind of violation or notice, I don't think we're doing things in the wrong order necessarily.
Okay. That's all for me. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, OP.
Thank you. Commissioner Ohigashi.
I just wanted to clarify, I don't think I mentioned anything about housing, or I think it was Arnold. And some people make the mistake of mixing me up with Arnold, but I don't think it's right. I just wanted to let you know, I think it was Arnold who did it.
I'm sorry.
No problem. It was me, Chair, but, and I am better looking than Commissioner Ohigashi. But thank you.
I'm willing to entertain a motion on that matter, actually. We can put this to a vote. Which one of you is better looking? Is there anything further at this time, commissioners? Ms. Garson, I appreciate the updates. I certainly appreciate a much better explanation of the design considerations of this new master plan, which really reflect, I think, its presence in Hawaii and its particular presence in this area of North Kona. I certainly have appreciated over the course of these proceedings knowing more about the University of the Nations, its mission, how it operates. It certainly increased my knowledge of and respect for the applicant. But I have to say, and maybe I'm making some comments and you can either respond to them now or when we go into our next agenda item after lunch. But I guess I disagree in my mind at this point with OP's contention that the withdrawal of the motion to remand was a misstep. I never understood why that was not pursued. And I thought the only possible reason that might have been given by a consultant to your client that it shouldn't rescind and then apply for a new thing is that, well, you'd have to go through 343. But now there's this admission that 343 is triggered anyway. So this is a brand new project. It's totally different in so many respects than the original docket proposed and approved by the Land Use Commission. And that's not to say that what's proposed isn't worthy, that we don't want to see things go forward. It's not even saying that this land isn't better suited in the urban district. But we have these processes by which we go through to ensure that public interests are protected. And I continue to be confused by what's the course of action that's being pursued. And I'm sort of reminded, I spent some of the early pandemic watching season 2 of Rust Valley Restorers, these Canadian guys who take old hot rods and fix them up again. And every once in a while, there's somebody who comes in, right? He's like, oh, I was going to fix up this car with my daughter, but she died. Can you fix it up now? And they bring it in. And after they look at the car, they're like, you know what? The frame is thrashed. There's no way I can take this car all the way through without costing you so much money. But you know what? Let's start with a new frame and I'll restore your car. And the guys say, well, okay, yeah, let's go with it. But instead we seem to be clinging to this old rusted out frame of a former approval that has almost nothing to do with what we want to drive forward with. So you can respond to that now or respond to that in our later proceeding, but that's what I'm struggling with. How do we all move together successfully and in a straightforward way in compliance with the law in this effort to what is, I don't hear anybody saying is not a good end to try and get to.
And again, so the 2003 plan had expansion of the university component on it, right? That was, it was a 5-acre portion of the petition area that was going to be an educational facility. The focus, whether or it be for commercial purposes or otherwise, was always for educational purposes. I can go through the findings of fact and also, again, say that a portion of the condominiums that were supposed to be built were meant for staff and students, similar to the dorms that were being built now. You know, I think a motion to amend is appropriate like this, and you have done things like this in the past in other documents. I think Emmanuel Lutheran, there was a campus type thing that was basically took up a whole petition area and then was reduced to half of that, and the rest of it was affordable housing. So it's almost the opposite of what we're asking you to do now. I mean, there is precedent. This is a motion to amend type of action that I think the commission has approved before, and we're also talking about basically a same ownership. I mean, you're not flipping it to somebody else who's trying to do a different project. Same ownership, I would say, an evolving vision, and that is what a motion to amend is for.
Would a motion to amend allow for the phasing of projects under 205?
Would it
allow for
phasing?
Right, I might not be using the exact right word, but we have, for projects which have much longer than a decade time horizon, we have a process by which we allow phasing. And a motion amend accomplish that same end
So with your
legally.
incremental redistricting is something that comes up when you're dealing with district boundary amendments, not necessarily motions to amend. But as far as the phasing, so that's incremental redistricting. As far as the phasing is concerned, there's nothing preventing you from allowing the petitioner to phase their project. And one of the things that we were trying to show you and that Mr. Overton from G70 was showing you is that the phase 1 infrastructure improvements or really it's a substantial commencement of the property. So within the first 10 years, the infrastructure will be built to satisfy that requirement. And I think, again, that is something that you have been doing with other projects where if the infrastructure is in within the 10 years, then you have approved those types of projects.
Commissioner Cabral.
Yeah, thank you. I'm trying to come up with a motion, and I'm not a lawyer, you know, but in an effort.
Commissioner Cabral, this is just a status report right now.
Right, but okay. That I don't need to make a motion then because we're going to have a hearing. Okay, then let's move on. Thank you.
Is there anything further at this time that you want to say, Ms. Garson?
Oh, no, the petitioner, I think you have seen from the time we started coming before you until now, just the tremendous amount of work that has been done to move forward. And there is momentum and they are committed, and they're also committed to doing the right thing in this process for the community. And you know, we wanted to be upfront by pointing out to you what we saw in the conceptual infrastructure master plan. And we want to continue to move forward. It's a viable project. I think we've shown that to you in the motion to amend now. I don't think that there would be any skipping of steps as in the process. And as Mr. Overton said, we can update any studies to incorporate any of the comments during any kind of scoping or any public comment. I feel like the university is basically ahead of square one. There's no reason to go back to square one at all. This property is in the general plan, Kona Community Development Plan as urban. It is in an urban area. It's a mile out of Kailua. This is urban is the proper district classification. And so it doesn't really make sense to revert it and start all over again when we really have come this far. The petitioner has demonstrated to you how they're committed they are to the project. They've shown you what a good project it is, and we just want to be allowed to move forward.
Thank you. Since there's, I think, nothing further now, I'm going to check in with our executive officer, but I think it's 11:47. It'd be a good time to take a break for lunch, perhaps reconvene at around 12:45, and then we would take up the order to show cause motion and proceed with the ending. We have till 3 o'clock today when we lose Commissioner Giovanni, and we have one other Hawaii Island matter to address as well. Is this acceptable?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, it's 11:47. Let's reconvene. We'll go into recess. We'll reconvene at 12:45 with the next agenda item. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Chair, it appears all commissioners are present and OP has just signed on.
Cabral, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Hawaii County.
Hawaii County.
We're missing Hawaii County.
Hi, they'll be here in less than a minute.
Okay.
Dad Giovanni. Yeah? What is the Giants openers?
I think they're playing the Dodgers today.
Huh?
They're playing the Dodgers today.
It's going to be Cueto versus Kershaw.
I saw at these stadiums, they have these cutout pictures, cutout people sitting in the stands. Did you send in your cutout?
But I heard in Dodger Stadium they're piping in fan noise.
First time there's noise, I guess.
Oh.
Actually, you know, Dodger Stadium, the fans only show up from the 3rd to the 5th inning anyway. So.
No, I'm there to eat my Dodger dog. Hey, Dan, remember we got Mookie now, so we're going all the way.
12 years. There may not be baseball in 12 years the way we're going.
Okay, Hawaii County, you ready?
Oh, there they are.
We want to do a sound check, Chair.
Can we do a sound check with Hawaii County?
Aloha, can you hear us? Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Great.
Okay, we were just waiting for you. Now we're ready to go again. It is 12:48 p.m. We're out of recess. The commission now will move on to the next agenda item, which is a hearing and action meeting on the order to show cause issued March 29th, 2019. A02737, University of Nations, Bencorp, Hawaii. We're here to hear evidence, deliberate, and take action on the order to show cause. Let me briefly run over our procedure for today. First, it will be similar to our previous items. First, I will recognize anybody from the public who wishes to provide testimony on this matter. Then the chair will allow for the petitioner's presentation on this matter. We will allow comments from the County of Hawaii and the OP on their respective presentations. And then after the presentations, the commission will deliberate. The record for this docket was updated earlier today. Will the parties please identify themselves for the record?
Good morning, Catherine Garson and Derek Simon for the petitioner, University of Nations, Kona. And also present Julie Anjo and Alan Anjo, General Counsel for the University of Nations, Kona, Inc., the petitioner.
Good afternoon, rather.
Ah, time flies when you're having fun.
Yes, indeed.
Good afternoon. This is Diana Mellon Lacey from Corporation Counsel for the County of Hawaii. Also present is Corporation Counsel, Deputy Corporation Counsel John Mukai, and from the Planning Department, Jeff Darrow and April Supernaut is present. Michael Yee may be joining us later.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Deputy Attorney General Don Apuna on behalf of the State Office of Planning. Here with me is Rodney Funakoshi and Lorraine Maki.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Garson, you can proceed with the presentation of your case.
Okay, do you want us to call our first witness?
You may.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. I went out of the order I said I was going to do. I apologize. Is there anybody who's in the audience as an attendee who wishes to provide public testimony on this matter? This was prior to Ms. Garson's case. If so, raise your hand using the raise hand function. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody. Sorry, Ms. Garson, we can now call. Oh. Mr. Roger Hamilton will be admitted. Apologize for that. Mr. Hamilton, if you will enable your audio and video. Can we hear you?
Are you able to hear me right now?
That's better, yes.
Okay.
So do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Okay. Please proceed, you have 2 minutes.
All right. Aloha, my name is Roger Hamilton and I work for the Department of Education. I oversee the English Language Learner Program at the 19 schools in West Hawaii. This program serves students who speak English as a second language. And I've worked with the University of the Nations as a community partner for the past 6 years. A few projects we have collaborated on during this time include the tutoring from the YWAM volunteers. Mr. Murakami spoke about that earlier. But they are in numerous schools throughout West Hawaii, and they're a valuable asset as we do not have extra funding to provide this after-school tutoring to these kids. We've also partnered, recently our demographics have changed. We've had an influx of students from China and Vietnam, and so we were not set up for translation services into Cantonese, Mandarin, and Vietnamese, so we reached out to the University of the Nations. And they have helped us with the communication for the teachers, the parents, and the administration. So it's been a very valuable partnership. And then the other big item that we partner on is the University of Nations hosts our West Hawaii Multicultural Speech Festival on their campus. The Multicultural Speech Festival is an event that a lot of our students look forward to all year long. It's been held at the University of the Nations since 2015 and keeps growing bigger and bigger each year. Last year we had over 140 students from 10 different schools participating. Prior to that, we were in a windowless band room at the Kealakekei High campus, so quite the upgrade for our students. As soon as our students set foot on the University of the Nations campus, they immediately feel welcomed and valued. Banners are displayed welcoming the students in different languages. The speech festival is opened by a representative of the University of Nations. And the
2 minutes, if you could summarize, please.
Moving forward, we hope to partner with the University of the Nations in creating an outreach program to service our at-risk students residing at the 8 separate low-income housing communities throughout Kona. The University of the Nations is a valuable asset to our keiki and our community. Without reservation, I fully support the University of Nations Kona campus expansion onto the 62 acres next to their property. Mahalo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hamilton. Are there questions for the witness, starting with the petitioner, Ms. Garson?
Hi, Mr. Hamilton. No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. County?
This is Diana Mellon Lacey speaking for the county. Thank you, Mr. Hamilton, for your testimony. We have no questions.
Thank you. OP?
No questions.
Commissioners? Any questions, commissioners? No. Thank you very much, Mr. Hamilton, for your testimony today. We appreciate it. Is there anybody else in the audience wishing to testify on this matter? Otherwise, we will proceed with Ms. Garson's presentation. Seeing none, Ms. Garson, you have a witness to call?
We're going to call Lena Ala Fuen.
Okay. I see her. I will promote her to be a panelist. I'm going to step away from my camera for one moment. Is it Freuen or Fruen?
Fruen.
Fruen. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I swear.
Thank you. Please proceed, Ms. Garson.
Aloha mai kako. My name is Lane Alafuen, reside here in Kailua Kona, Hawaii, address 73-4541 Kokuki Street.
Okay, and Ms. Freuen, can you explain, I was going to ask you to state your name for the record, but can you explain your connection to the University of Nations Kona, please?
Yes, my connection actually started in 1986 as a young girl, and I believe I was about 8 years old with my affiliations and did many of the different youth training courses. So I was a young child, went into youth, did many of their mentorship programs, as well as served the community in that capacity, and moved along and did many of their courses. And today I would say I have a master's degree in intercultural studies through University of the Nations.
Okay, and do you have responsibilities with the University of Nations campus? I understand that you are the director of the Haleo Hawaiian language program.
Yes, so my responsibilities first and foremost is Hawaiian culture as well as advising and monitoring. And we have a program called the Haleo Hawaiian language class that was developed in 2009 and started its first course for the community. And that course started actually from the desire of a kupuna that presented the program to University of the Nations, and her name is Kupuna Mary Boyd Kamahele. And she was one that proposed to the University of the Nation how University of the Nation could allow Hawaiian language to be taught, but allow Hawaiian natives to learn their language for free, and how this program would assist with many natives who desire to learn the language, and some of them might not want to go to university or a school, but desire a course that they could use the language for free. And since 2011, we've been successfully running courses at the University of the Nation, and there's been many Hawaiians that have come through the program and learned Hawaiian language. And out of that, several of the teachers are in the program that's actually graduated, speak fluent now, and are also immersion language speakers. And so one of the schools, Ehunui Kaimalino, sends their teachers who haven't spoken and are working on their teaching degree, they send them to us at University of the Nations to learn through that program, because what they found was that many of the students and people from the community that came was actually speaking faster to Kama'ilio. And it was successful to integrate this through their campus at Ehunui Kaimalino.
Thank you. So at some point, did the University of Nations reach out to the University of Hawaii to talk about perpetuating the Hawaiian language by providing these distance learning opportunities?
I believe in 2002 May, I was one of them that actually went to University of Hilo in the Ke'elelikolani College and was learning Hawaiian at that time. And I reached out to Dr. Kalena Silva and asked how we could have Hawaiian language be taught at the University of the Nations and allow for the University of Hilo to provide distant learning for those that were interested in the community. And what I found is many of the people in our community, the youngest would be 14 and the oldest that would actually take the courses that was provided would have been about 79 years old. And so at that time, the university advised me to go ahead and find people in the community that had the AA degree. And when they get the AA degree, to come back and see what kind of programs they could offer in helping with distant learning.
Mm-hmm. And so wasn't it that—
Ms. Garson, if I may at this time, I thought that we were not doing evidence today, but really presenting argument.
I'm sorry, that's why I asked, should I call my first witness? And you said, yes, call my first witness. And so I'm calling my first witness. I misunderstood.
So what is the relevance of this witness towards the OSC proceedings in front of us?
Actually, it is about the establishment of the Waiaha, the Waiaha Community Advisory Committee, which was the Ka'ohana Advisory Committee. It's about reaching out to the university regarding the college. College of Hawaiian Language. It goes to the conditions in the 2003 amendment, 2003 DO.
Okay, so please, you say witnesses. You have multiple witnesses you were hoping to call today?
Yes, because if we're in the OSC proceedings, then yes, we do.
We're in the OSC proceedings.
Okay.
Please give me an outline of what you're planning to do, because if the intention is to call witnesses and present evidence, I'm not sure that we have the time scheduled today for what was anticipated to be primarily argument.
Okay, my apologies to Ms. Fruin for calling her then, because I'm sorry, I misunderstood, Chair. I thought you called the OSC and we were proceeding with the OSC.
we are indeed on the order to show cause.
Okay. And so we're presenting evidence on the order to show cause, or you just want
Please give
an
me
opening
the,
statement?
what is the outline of what you were hoping to present today under your understanding?
We have Paul Childers available. He's the COO. He's going to explain the history of United Nations, what United Nations, I did it, University of Nations. He's going to explain what basically has happened between 2003 and today. We have our financial officer, Martin Rediger, available to testify as to the financials up until this point. We have, who else? Yeah, we have Peter Harris, who can talk about the affordable housing project, which is the Kama'aina Hale. We have Jeff Overton, again, to talk about what is in the motion to amend and all of the work that has been done with the motion to amend to further establish good cause not to be reverted. Bob Reckman to talk about the archaeological work that has been done on the property. Or we would entertain. Yeah.
One moment, Mr. Okuda, Commissioner Okuda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If it's appropriate, I would like to make a motion to bifurcate this proceedings. In other words, to deal first with the question whether or not the order to show cause proceeding should continue forward or not. And if number two, a decision is made to move forward with the order to show cause proceeding, whether it would be then appropriate to schedule a time when there could be a more fuller record presented, but that would be my either motion or suggestion. I'll leave it to you.
Thank you, Commissioner Okuda. Commissioner Wong.
Chair, before we entertain Commissioner Okuda's motion, I would like to move to executive session to talk to our legal counsel about the rights, responsibilities, and the issues of, legal issues regarding this docket.
Okay, there is now actually a motion in front of us to go into executive session. Is there a second?
I will second that, Mr. Chair. Edmund Axon.
Commissioner Axon, a motion has been made by Commissioner Wong and seconded by Commissioner Axon to move into executive session to consult with our attorney regarding this matter. Commissioner Wong?
When we move into executive session, can we ask staff to work out the details of how to, we go into an executive session Zoom room or whatever we have to do? I mean, how we do it like last time?
So if the motion before us succeeds, I would ask Mr. Oradenker to send a Zoom meeting invitation to a separate Zoom room. All the commissioners would exit this room and then follow the instructions to enter into a new Zoom room with our Deputy Attorney General, Ms. Julie Chena. This meeting would continue in recess until we're done with executive session.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have just sent you an email with the link for that Zoom meeting.
Okay. Well, let's see. Is there discussion on the motion, commissioners? If not, Mr. Oradenker, will you do, for those who have not participated since we've moved to Zoom, I ask for roll call votes on all matters, so it's really clear what our votes are. Will you do a roll call vote on this, Mr. Oradenker?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Wong.
Aye.
Commissioner Giovanni.
Aye.
Second.
Commissioner Axon,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner Ohigashi,
Yes.
Commissioner Okuda,
Yes.
Commissioner Cabral,
Yes.
Chair Scheuer.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Unanimous motion passed.
Okay, so parties, as I described just earlier, the commissioners will be leaving this room. We're going into a different Zoom room with our Attorney General for executive session. This room will remain open and we will return to this room after executive session. It's 1:47 p.m. We are out of executive session. Ms. Fruin, I know you are on the stand as a witness right now, but I'm going to actually ask you to step down. I'm going to move you into the audience, at least temporarily.
All right.
I'm going to first assess where we are in our proceedings. Just for everybody's benefit, including the benefit of people who are listening in as attendees, based on a commission's action on October 7th of 2019, the LUC issued findings of fact, conclusions of law, and decision in order in this matter, extending the order to show cause proceedings, the petitioner agreeing to not conduct any development activities that essentially might be construed as substantial commencement, agreeing that substantial commencement has not occurred. They agreed to come before us within 6 months of that proceeding with a status report, which they have done. And at that status conference, we asked for additional information, which we have received today, substantial new information. Because of this history, that is why we first heard the status conference, but the OSC process was continued until this moment, which brings us to where we are, where if we were to continue, if we were to choose to continue as a land use commission with the OSC hearings, we would actually schedule this for evidentiary procedures. We have been briefed by the county, OP, and the petitioner on this matter. So I just wanted to overview and assess where we are in our proceedings today. Commissioner Okuda?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Based on the chair's summary, which I agree on what the situation is, I withdraw the prior motion I made or suggestion to bifurcate. I don't believe it was seconded, so I withdraw that. And instead, I make a motion to dismiss the pending order to show cause without prejudice.
Okay, there's a motion. Commissioner Cabral, are you seconding?
Yes, I would like to second Mr. Commissioner Okuda's motion. So eloquently put. Thank
We have a
you.
motion to dismiss the OSC proceedings without prejudice. It's been made by Commissioner Okuda and seconded by Commissioner Cabral. We are in discussion. Do you wish to speak to your motion, Commissioner Okuda?
Mr. Chair, thank you. I would like to say that we take orders to show cause very seriously. We take very seriously the conditions that are set forth in Land Use Commission orders, decisions and orders that deal with boundary amendments. We take very seriously the admonition of the Hawaii Supreme Court in a number of cases, which I believe include Bridge Ainalea, which makes clear that one of the functions of the Land Use Commission is to prevent people from simply getting boundary amendments, for example, agriculture to urban, and then not carrying out their responsibilities, but instead speculating on the value of land, which frankly does not help our community. We take those admonitions, those duties very seriously. We also take very seriously testimony that is given, especially when the testimony comes across from people who have commitments to the community, who come across as credible and who have the background to give that testimony. And I believe that we heard from Mr. Oda, from educators in the community, grounds to indicate that given the present situation at this point in time, in order to show cause, may not be in the best interest of land use or the community. And for those reasons and other good reasons in the record, I have made this motion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Okuda. We are in discussion. Commissioner Cabral.
I'd like to speak it to my second of that motion and agree with my fellow Commissioner Okuda. And furthermore, I'd like to thank the petitioner, the University of Nations, as well as Attorney Garson and the various experts and community people for coming forward, because it's clear, as our chair Shoria just reiterated, that we met with them earlier in this year and we gave them clear instructions as to what we needed, and they've come forward. So I totally appreciate their willingness to participate in our duties. So I second this motion and will be voting in favor. Thank you.
Commissioners. Commissioner Wong.
Chair, I'll be speaking in favor of this motion. I just do have some concerns of the status report, and hopefully the staff can meet with the petitioner on some of the issues that came up during the status report. And I don't know if we should direct the staff or how we should do this, because I just had some concerns on those things.
Do you want to elaborate what those concerns are, Commissioner?
Well, you know, there are some issues regarding, there's a possible 343 out there, or the EIS issue, and a possible amendment issue, and you know how to do the process on dealing with this, and what comes first, how to get everything done properly so we don't have another Bridge Ainalea case.
Thank you. Commissioner Chang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I, like Commissioner Wong, do have some concerns. Quite frankly, I was very pleased with the presentation today, as it gave me greater reassurance that the university is committed to this new project. However, there are some outstanding issues before us. A motion to amend, the 343 question, and you know, to avoid sort of a situation like today where witnesses were brought, but we didn't, you know, we weren't prepared to proceed with them. I think closer coordination with perhaps amongst the parties themselves and then with LUC staff, that would help to facilitate any future proceedings before us. But I am inclined to vote in favor of this motion. Thank you.
Commissioners. Commissioner Giovanni.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm the newest commissioner on this commission, and this this case was very difficult for me to understand with its long history. But I think the commission's notice to show cause has served a great purpose to bring clarity and a path forward that I think makes a lot more sense to me. And I'm going to speak in favor of the motion because I think it served its purpose, and we can go, and all parties can go forward together with a lot less confusion and history. Thank you.
Commissioner Ohigashi.
I just wanted to indicate that I believe that we are in a position today because of a failure over the years of following these various projects. I am very pleased, and I give our staff tremendous credit that we are able to now bring these issues to light. I have reluctance in supporting this motion because I believe that this is a totally new DBA. Unlike what Petitioner's Counsel has indicated, I was trying to calculate what the actual percentage of use for what do you call that, for educational purpose was originally, it was 10%. That's what my figures come out, about 10%, maybe 15, maybe 17. A large portion of it was as a moneymaker for the university so that they can rely on a dedicated source of income. However, given the fact of the disclosure that this matter may fall within Chapter 343, and the fact that that disclosure is now on record, and whether or not an independent a determination is made by the petitioners to not go forward under 343 because they don't feel that it applies, it is on the record and will be subject to review. Their determination will be subject to further review. Given that fact, I think, and the scope of the project, I think that a motion to amend hearing will encompass almost all of the issues that would be necessary in issuing an initial DBA. Therefore, reluctantly, I will support this motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Ohigashi. Commissioners, is there anything further? Commissioner Axon.
Mr. Chair, like Commissioner Ohigashi, I will be reluctantly be supporting this motion. I have a major concern about this project. There is from 2003 up to a couple years ago, nothing happens, and still I still have some real concerns on how this project is going to be moving forward. But maybe after this, motion, the petitioner can, the foregoing proceedings can convince me that I was wrong. So just to kind of get this project moving along with the proceedings, I will be reluctantly supporting this motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Axon. Commissioners, is there anything further? The chair, I really share in what I thought was a very articulate expression by Commissioner Ohigashi. I'm reluctant to support this motion, but do feel it's probably the best path forward at this time. I think for me, it's really necessary to note we're living in unprecedented times right now. Global pandemic, global economic depression, and incredible civil unrest. And for me, just personally for me, this is the time at which I actually try to retreat into the law to make our procedures and everything we do as clear and as by the book as possible, because it's sort of the bedrock that we have to turn to in uncertain times. So I'm really, I've heard great things about this new plan. I am really counting on the petitioner to follow through, to do full disclosure, to take seriously the comments I and other commissioners have made about impacts, that there's meaningful analysis so that we can fulfill our duties given to us by the people of Hawaii to ensure that land use entitlements are done with the thought that not only advances the goals of the state, but protects the important public trust resources on which we all depend. The comfort I have in the motion is that it is without prejudice, so that should this not occur, I will have no problem going forward with another OSC motion if there's not meaningful, timely progress on this matter. Is there anything further, commissioners, on this motion? If not, Mr. Ordenker, will you please poll the commission?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The motion is to dismiss the pending order to show cause without prejudice. Commissioner Okuda.
Yes.
Commissioner Cabral.
Yes.
Commissioner Axon.
Aye.
Commissioner Ohigashi. Commissioner Ohigashi.
Yes.
Commissioner Chang.
Yes.
Commissioner Giovanni. Commissioner Giovanni.
He's muted.
You're muted. Commissioner Giovanni.
Still muted.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Wong.
Aye.
Chair Scheuer.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Okay. As suggested by the commissioners in deliberations, Ms. Garson, I would encourage you to work closely with LUC staff. as you
We will.
pursue things.
Thank you very much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Chair, it's 2:03. We will do a 5-minute recess to 2:08 to allow the next parties to come in on DR 2069 County of Hawaii and DR 2070 Rosehill et al. Reconvening at 2:09, and we have to finish our proceedings today at 3 o'clock. We will see how far we get.
And I have a hurricane heading towards me, folks. I have a hurricane, you know.
Hey, Dan, Kershaw's out, you know. They scratched him right now.
Very much. Okay. Just going to wait for an okay from Dan that we're good to go.
Good to go.
Okay.
Except Nancy seems to be experiencing some trouble.
I have other virtual backgrounds for anybody who grew up on Oahu. Do you recognize this?
No, Chair.
It's the Sky Slide at Gibson.
The super slide, yes, Gibson.
Yes.
Super slide, right? You ride on the carpet.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
It's before my time, Chair, sorry.
Oh, stop it.
You would know if you watched Checkers and Fogo.
That's right. In fact, that's who you look like. Never mind KFC. You look like Checkers. Or maybe Pogo. I'm not sure which one. Okay. Nancy, you ready? Okay. It's 2:10 p.m. Our next agenda item are the continued proceedings on consolidated declaratory orders DR 2069 County of Hawaii and DR 2070 Rosehill et al. Before we begin, I'd like again to take a moment to explain what these proceedings are about and how certain things have to be handled in order to ensure we are in compliance with subchapters 5 and 14 of our rules, as well as the relevant statutory requirements with regard to public meetings. First, I ask everybody to keep in mind this is a request for a declaratory ruling, or rather 2 requests. That means the commission is being asked to interpret a statute, rule, or document and not to make a determination of a factual dispute. While certain facts may be important to making an interpretation of law, in this type of proceedings, the facts are not really in dispute. The commission is taking the basic facts as undisputed. What we are here to decide is the very limited issues presented by the petitioner, County of Hawaii, and the petitioners, Rosehill et al. Therefore, this is not, nor can it be, a contested case hearing where evidence is presented and witnesses are provided and allowed to be cross-examined. I would remind everyone of that. Again, the facts are not in dispute. It is the application of law to accepted facts that is being heard. Next, I would like to impress upon everyone that under subchapter 14 of our rules, the only true parties to these proceedings are the declarants or the petitioners, the County of Hawaii and Rosehill et al. Everyone else, including the Office of Planning, are in effect public witnesses. After the witness has completed their testimony, the County of Hawaii, Rosehill et al. And the commissioners will be given opportunity to ask questions. Also, after public witnesses have had a chance to speak, including OP, the representatives for the County of Hawaii and Rosehill et al. Will be given as much time as they might need to complete their cases. Let me just say, due to the late time and the hard stop of 3 o'clock, I expect that we will have to continue this proceeding yet again to August 12th. Upon completion of all testimony, the commission will ask questions and come to a decision. Will the petitioning parties for dockets number DR 2069 and DR 2070 please identify themselves for the record?
Good afternoon, John Mukai, Deputy Corporation Counsel. On behalf of the County of Hawaii, also present is Diana Mellon Lacey, Deputy Corporation Counsel. Also Planning Director Michael Yee and April Supernan, Deputy Director.
Thank you, Mr. Mukai.
Good afternoon, Chair, Commissioners. Cal Chip Chase, and off camera is the ever-present Chris Gooden for the Rosehill petitioners.
Okay. Let me update the record on this matter. On June 25th, 2020, the Commission agreed with the stipulation to consolidate signed by the representatives of Hawaii County and Rosehill et al. And began proceedings to hear the argument of the petitioners. During the proceedings, additional information was requested from the petitioners by the Commission. Between June 26th and until this morning, the Commission received the County of Hawaii's supplemental submission and petitioner Rosehill et al.'s proposed findings of fact, conclusions of law, and decision in order. Written public testimony from Kurt Wollenhaupt, the Office of Planning supplemental response to the county and petitioner Rosehill et al. Petitions for declaratory order. The response by the petitioners in docket number DR 2070 to the County of Hawaii's supplemental submission filed July 10th, 2020, and other filings which were received again as late as this morning and have been posted to our website. On July 2020, the Commission mailed the July 22nd and 23rd notice of agenda to the parties and to our statewide Hawaii, Oahu, and Hawaii regular and email mailing lists. Sorry, one moment while I look at something. Okay. Thank you. I will now note, as I did before, that there was written testimony received from Kurt Wollenhaupt. And then I believe we're going to proceed with presentations from starting with the county. Is that right, Mr. Ordenker? Okay. Mr. Mukai. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Ordenker.
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Mr. Mukai, are you ready?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. The County of Hawaii has petitioned this commission for a declaratory order that farm dwellings may not be used as short-term vacation rentals. Initially, the county would like to first clarify something. The county agrees with the state that there must be agricultural use or activities within the confines of a farm dwelling. It should be agriculture related to the farm dwelling. And a farm dwelling can only be operated in connection with agricultural use and not simply for residential use as outlined in HRS section 205-4.5. The county would urge the commission to simply look at whether farm dwellings to be occupied exclusively by a single family which obtains income from agricultural activities on a farm that the same family owns in fee or leasehold, and a determination that farm dwellings may not be used as short-term vacation rentals pursuant to HRS section 205-2, section 205-4.5, and section 15-15-03 of the Hawaii Administrative Rules. A short-term vacation rental is defined in Chapter 25-1.5 of the Hawaii County Code as a dwelling unit where the owner or operator does not reside on the building site, has no more than 5 bedrooms for rent on the building site, and is rented for a period of 30 consecutive days or less. The county is not arguing about the duration of the farm dwellings being rented for 30 days or less, or whether the owner of the farm dwelling not needing to reside in the dwelling. But the use, we would stress the use of the farm dwelling is essential in determining whether the Rosehill petitioners may use their farm dwellings as short-term vacation rentals. Hawaii Revised Statutes section 205D7 specifically defines farm dwellings as an agricultural accessory. And in turn, farm dwellings as defined in Hawaii Revised Statutes section 205-4.5A4 notes that within the agricultural district, section 4, farm dwelling is defined as follows. It's defined as employee housing, farm buildings, or activities or uses related to farming and animal husbandry. Farm dwelling, as used in this paragraph, means a single-family dwelling located on and used in connection with a farm, including clusters of single-family farm dwellings permitted within agricultural parks developed by the state, or where agricultural activity provides income to the family occupying the dwelling. A farm dwelling's purpose is to be a bona fide agricultural service and use which supports and is an accessory to agricultural activities. The purpose of a short-term vacation rental is to provide transient accommodations or housing that will be temporarily rented for periods of 30 days or less. A short-term vacation rental is the equivalent of like a resort or hotel accommodation which provides lodging for visitors or transients for the purposes of tourism or vacation. We have also reviewed the Office of Planning's supplemental submission and we would direct the commission to page 5, the first full paragraph, which reads, if the petitioners are able and willing to provide facts demonstrating or acknowledging that their dwellings meet all of the STVR elements and at least one of the farm dwelling options, then the commission could determine that petitioners were properly operating their farm dwellings as STVRs pursuant to HRS 205-4.5A4. We can assume that petitioners meet the 3 elements of the STVR rental, but the petitioners fail to demonstrate that their farm dwellings are either located on and used in connection with a farm or are located where agricultural activity provides income to the family occupying the farm dwelling. It's the county's position that under a scenario where a farm dwelling on agriculturally zoned property can qualify for a vacation type rental, that it would be governed by the short-term overnight accommodations as agricultural tourism as defined pursuant to Hawaii Revised Statute, Section 205, 2D12. The county believes that the commission shouldn't or cannot combine the definitions of short-term vacation rentals and farm dwellings, as they are, we believe, separate and distinct uses. And we would, after this, we would ask Ms. Apuna if she could clarify the Office of Planning's position on this matter. But based on our submissions and the law, we submit that the county requests that the State Land Use Commission uphold the intent of its state land use law by finding in favor of the County of Hawaii and declaring that a short-term vacation rental is not a permitted use of a farm dwelling in the agricultural district. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mukai. Commissioners, questions for Hawaii County? Commissioner Okuda.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Mukai. Mr. Mukai, can I call your attention to the response filed by the ROSEHILL petitioners, which was filed July 21, 2020 at 6:42 a.m., and specifically calling your attention to footnote 1 on page 3, which quotes or recites from the transcript, which was attached, I believe, to that filing as Exhibit 1, which was the colloquy that I had between or with your planning director, Michael Yee. Do you see that footnote 1?
Yes, Commissioner. And in fact, at this time, I would offer, if you wish, I can have Mr. Yee, who is here, clarify the position.
Yeah. Well, can I ask an initial foundational question? Was that testimony, which was given under oath, was that accurate testimony or was that not accurate testimony?
Oh, we believe it is accurate. And in fact, I can have Mr. Yee explain in context what was being said and his responses.
Okay, I'll leave it to the chair whether that's a what the chair
Is it necessary at this time, Commissioner Okuda, for your purposes?
Yeah, maybe, because I just want to find out. Let me just say this. It seems like what the county is stating now is contradicted by that statement, which is laid out in footnote 1.
Okay, so narrowly, let's allow Mr. Yee to clarify. He was sworn in earlier.
Okay, state your name first.
Michael Yee, Planning Director. You know, when you look at that citation, you can see that I clearly stated that we consider it to be a farm dwelling unit, and so, you know, we're committed to the agricultural activity that has to occur. But as I had said in that day, that administratively it's problematic to try to have every property with their first farm dwelling unit to show that they have ag activity when they're ready to build the first home on it. And so it's not to say that the agricultural activity isn't important, but we equally feel like somebody should be able to build their house first on a property. So I don't see it being in conflict, because the use as a farm dwelling, as for somebody residing in it, is much different than trying to have people reside in it or occupy it as a vacation rental 24/7.
Okay, yeah, but Mr. Yee, my question to you was, I was telling you up front, I have no intention on conducting any farm activity. I'm going to build my mansion on the property, I'm not going to farm. There's not going to be any agricultural activity. Will you still allow me to build my mansion when I'm telling you absolutely not? There will be no agricultural activity. Let me clarify. When I say I say will you let me build, I'm asking what is the county's position?
I'm still going to say that it's still a farm dwelling unit. And people right now have to sign a farm dwelling agreement with us on that unit. And although they may say that they're going to not perform agricultural activities, it doesn't necessarily take away from residing in that house. When you place a use like a vacation rental, you certainly eliminate that option.
So even if I tell you straight up front that there will be no agricultural activity, you will still grant me the permit to build the dwelling?
It's still going to be a farm dwelling unit.
And even if I told you I'm putting some deed restrictions on my deed to say there will be no farming activity on this property, you would still give me a permit, you meaning the county, to build the dwelling?
No, you cannot do that because by its very nature, it would have to have agricultural activities connected to the property. This is John Mukai, sorry.
Yeah, I understand that, but okay, thank you very much. I heard your responses. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Chang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Mukai, Mr. Yee, I have the same line of questioning as Commissioner Okuda. Mr. Yee, as I understand your explanation, you are of the opinion that they can build the farm dwelling first before they actually start a farming activity. Is that correct? Is that what you're saying?
That is correct, but right now people fill out a farm dwelling agreement when they want to build that first one.
Okay. But is there a time period upon which you have to do the farming, according to you?
Realistically, no, we don't.
Yeah, so I guess the question I have for you is, couldn't the plaintiffs come forward and say, we're planning on doing farming. We haven't started it yet. And it's, I mean, how can you then deny that that's not a farm dwelling? Because you have no time period upon, if they tell you, they complete the form and they say, oh, but we're going to do farming in the future, not just yet. That just, I'm having a really difficult time understanding your chronology of the use of the land. When I read 205, it would appear as if the farming comes first, and there needs to be some agricultural activity, and that the dwelling is connected to that. Not that there's a dwelling first, because what is the guarantee that they'll ever do farming or agriculture?
One way I take a look at this is we're also looking at the uses that occur on an agricultural lot. So somebody could build a farm dwelling unit, their first one, and they can say they do X, Y, Z. As long as it's not a use that's unrestricted, they can proceed, right? And so it may not be a vacation rental, but let's say somebody takes up another activity on their agricultural that's not a permitted use. We would go in and say this is not a permitted use and issue a violation. hence why we're asking for a declaratory ruling on this to understand, is this a permitted use? Just like we wouldn't necessarily allow a junkyard to just occur on a piece of ag land. We would cite somebody for that. We're trying to understand, is this a permitted use? And if not, right, then there's a problem, right?
I guess I'm still having a difficulty with your clarification, because I will have to admit, I see the county's position today to be contradictory to the line of questioning that the commission had at the last hearing. You appear to be very adamant that you don't have to do any farming activity. You can have a single family dwelling on the property and do no farming. So I'm really grappling, because if there is no time limit on when you do the agricultural activity, who's to say that they're not in compliance with farm dwelling? If they tell you, I intend to do it, but they never do it. How do you enforce and judge that if they say they intend to do it and it's 30 years later?
It's still considered a farm dwelling unit. You know, I'm trying to think in my mind, if somebody built a single family dwelling unit, and let's say they didn't use it and they created, let's say, a commercial activity in it, they'd be in violation, and we may not find that out 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, changes hands, and there's an illegal use of it. We would enforce then. Again, I'm
Well, what if there's no illegal use? What if there's no illegal use, but there is still no farming, no agricultural use, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, but there's no other illegal activity, but there's a dwelling on there, but they never use it for agricultural purposes?
I'll just keep falling back that it's still a farm dwelling unit, though.
Okay, I think your explanation is that's your explanation. All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Chang. Commissioner Ohigashi.
I think I understand what you're trying to say. You're trying, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're trying to say that, look, we're going to authorize the building of a single family dwelling or a dwelling on the property. And they're going to sign this agreement and saying it's a farm dwelling. So the only use on that property is an agricultural type of use. The only use that the dwelling has is appertinent to that allowed use. Your question is whether or not a TVR or STVR is an allowed use like agriculture. We know that.
That is correct.
Okay. So I understand your position. You say you're going to allow dwellings on there so long as they sign this farm dwelling agreement. That's it. It's up to them to pursue what is legal on the property. And the question is agricultural use legal? Yes, so they can do it. Is STVRs legal on the property? That's what you're asking us, whether or not an agricultural loan is legal to do.
Exactly, that's the question, is that use allowable?
Yeah, I just wanted to understand your position. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ohigashi. Commissioners? I would note, I would note for Mr. Yee that his counterpart on Maui County actually thinks a junkyard is an allowable use on agricultural land, according to our proceedings 2 weeks ago, with a special permit even on important agricultural lands. Is there anything further right now from the commissioners? Questions for the county? If not, Mr. Chip Chase, there's time for you now. You could use some of it now. I don't know how much time you want or need. We're not going to get through all of our proceedings today due to the really extended conversations we've had on all of our other agenda items. What is your preference, Mr. Chip Chase?
My preference would be to reserve my comments for the meeting on August 12th. We timed out my presentation today without the additional things that I have to say now in response to the county, and I was at 30 minutes this morning. I'm probably at 35 minutes now. And so that takes us just with that past 3 o'clock, and then of course there'd be no time for questions.
Yeah, and I'd rather not have to remember all the things that I wanted to ask you over the next few weeks' time.
You could write them out, Chair, so that I have 2 weeks to prepare for them, but otherwise I agree.
I could, but I will not. My preference, commissioners, is to close this hearing. We have one agenda item, agenda 5, that was on our agenda to talk about continued operations during the COVID-19 pandemic, which was giving us, sorry, Commissioner Ohigashi, you've raised your hand.
Just for procedural purposes, I hope everybody remembers it's going to be Mr. Chip Chase's turn this time. So he starts off the meeting the next time?
That would be correct.
Okay.
And there will of course be time for closing arguments by the county after, and Mr. Chip Chase after hearing from OP. Commissioner Cabral.
Yes, where am I? Yes, I'd like to just ask everybody, I know everybody's working till the last minute. It's just, if you're gonna get us information that you want me to read before I'm sitting here, get it to me at least 24 hours ahead. I'll do everything at midnight and 2 a.m., but it's really hard when something gets sent to me at 8:30 in the morning when I have a 9 o'clock hearing with everybody and there's just no time to read information. So it really, really, you think you have a good point, anybody involved at any time, get it to us so we can absorb it before we have to act like we read it. Thank you. That's all. And we have a hurricane coming towards me, so I'm most happy to end as soon as possible. Thank you.
Okay.
And so if I may, Chair, just very briefly on that point, totally respect that comment, Commissioner Cabral, and fairly directed at me, as we filed technically late yesterday, but I understand you didn't receive it to this morning. And that was because we hadn't received OP's supplemental public testimony until yesterday. We noticed it on the website. We didn't receive a copy of it. And so if I could ask that everybody who's going to submit any filings to the commission in this matter to email everyone a copy of it, as we have, at the time that you submit it, that would help us respond as quickly as possible so that no commissioner is scrambling to read and attend a hearing on the same day.
Okay, duly noted. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. With that, commissioners, if there's no objection, what I'd like to do is to end discussion on this agenda item with the understanding that on August 12th, the same agenda where we're also again taking up Hawaiian Memorial Park, we will take up this matter, and I'd like to offer us, I believe it's agenda item 5, Mr. Ordenker. Mr. Ordenker.
Just a minute, Chair.
Okay, cleaning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just like, there are a couple of things that I would like to talk to the commissioners about our operations. One of them is that I think staff would request a little understanding on the part of the commissioners. The only reason that we're able to do these Zoom meetings is because of the governor's emergency proclamation. We don't know from month to month whether or not that emergency proclamation will continue. Once that emergency proclamation is lifted, we will no longer be able to do these Zoom meetings in the manner that we're doing them. I would also like to note for the commissioners that staff is in the office more often now. We are pretty close to full time so that you can reach us here if need be. The only other issue that I have is that with regard to the COVID-19 operations is that my intention, as long as the commission is in agreement, is to suggest for next legislative session that there be an amendment to whatever chapter needs to be amended to allow us to continue to do these Zoom meetings rather than having to do the old-fashioned video conferences at the state offices with their archaic system and all the rest. I will be talking with you further about that as time goes on, but that is my intention.
Are there questions for Mr. Ordenker regarding our continued operations during the COVID-19 pandemic? Commissioner Okuda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Ordenker, did you want some people, of course it wouldn't be me, but people who might be able to make inquiry to governor's staff about doing something about this? That way the issue doesn't slip through the cracks. In other words, we don't have the ability going forward to do these Zoom conferences when we need to.
I actually am in close communication with the Attorney General's office, in particular Bill Weinoff and his staff and the other attorneys with regard to this issue. So I'll be working with him closely.
Yeah, if I can just praise you and the rest of the staff, I think you folks have done a tremendous job with Zoom. One of the good things coming out of this pandemic, I think it shows technology which can help encourage public participation, especially as the chair pointed out, if we have two people in motor vehicles who are able to give very important, insightful testimony, that clearly wouldn't be able to be done under other circumstances. So thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Ordenker.
Thank you, Commissioner Okuda. Commissioner Cabral.
Yeah, I'd like to also commend the staff, obviously Riley and Dan and everybody for putting this together. And I'd like to commend our chairman, because I rarely give a compliment to Jonathan, but that he has got to be working so hard. I mean, it takes a lot for us to pay attention when we don't have all of the personal body language and the visual to really see who's talking when, and you have to, and then every time the screen changes, sometimes people change where they were sitting before, I don't know, those type of things. And for Jonathan to be tracking on that, I really have to commend you, Jonathan, and to remind people to identify themselves. And I mean, thank you. And Jean, I don't know if she's still on board there, but the fact that she can even take minutes, I mean, I'm exhausted just thinking about it. So aloha to all of you folks for putting up with this for the good of our government and our state and our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cabral. Commissioner Giovanni, followed by Commissioner Ohigashi.
Yeah, I want to add my 2 cents to my fellow commissioners in commending the staff and our chair and making the Zoom work very effectively. I greatly appreciate it. I don't think we've diminished much at all. In fact, there's actually been some efficiencies built into the whole process. I do have a question. I don't know if it's appropriate. If inappropriate, I'll accept no answer. But Mr. Ordenker, have there been any formal complaints on the record about the process of our using Zoom? I've heard nothing but good things. Have there been any negative things?
There hasn't been any complaints. In fact, the only thing we've gotten is compliments.
That's what I would expect. Thank you.
That will change though when we don't vote in favor of somebody, then the complaints will come.
Commissioner Ohigashi.
Yeah, I'll give my 4 cents being both checkers and Bogo. I think that I'd like to commend Dan and the staff, except for the unpaid one sitting next to him. I like to say that Jonathan, your problem is that they're going to make you for life, Chairman, if you don't watch out. And the last thing I like to say is that I want everybody to be safe because we have a hurricane coming. Take it easy.
Thank you, Commissioner Ohigashi. I was just going to share that I'm going to vote for the presidential candidate who promises drone strikes against high-level spectrum cable executives. Because they have been the biggest problem with Zoom for me. So, you know, if you're promising drone strikes against cable executives, I will endorse your candidacy. Commissioner Chang.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I mean, I too will echo my fellow land use commissioners. What I have really appreciated about the opportunity to do Zoom is just looking at the attendees. It is more than those who can physically come to the meetings. We've had people coming from different islands. So if anything, I think Zoom has created a broader opportunity for participation. For me personally, it has raised my level of comfort that I'm not having to travel, which has been really reassuring, as well as it's been a tremendous amount of saving time. Half the time we'd be waiting at the airport trying to get on an earlier flight. Yeah. But indeed, Jonathan, you have demonstrated great leadership and patience in these proceedings, and you know, always being mindful and thoughtful to the attendees. And I know on behalf of myself, being a member of the Land Use Commission, I have greatly appreciated the way that you've conducted with great professionalism, and the staff likewise. Hands off to you, Dan, and all the staff in keeping us going. And we haven't quite missed a beat. We've probably been able to do more, but thank you very much to all of you who have participated and gotten us to keep up the hard work. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Chang. Is there Commissioner Wong?
So I just wanted to tell you, because I do sit in other state agencies on their Zoom conference, and they're not as proficient as our staff. Especially they're using Microsoft Meeting or WebEx, and when they go into executive session, I still can hear them. So I just want to say that, you know, the way that our staff is doing it is the correct way. That, you know, we're doing it very proper, and to me, it's better for everyone involved.
I would also note, Mr. Chair, that the reason that we're able to do that is because Arnold comes here.
Thank you, Mr. Ardenker. If there's nothing further, I want to thank, I know that our dockets have been very long recently. Really thank the parties, Mr. Chip Chase, Hawaii County, OP, our Deputy Attorney General, for all their assistance in these matters. If there's nothing further, commissioners, we can adjourn and rush Costco for rice and teepee if you want to.
Yeah.
Is there anything further? If not, I'm happy to declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone, and be safe.